Bill Barnwell is going to be on the show with us today at 11. I love having Bill on. He wrote recently about 5 NFL teams that he thinks can make a big season out of one that is not expected, similar to what Washington did last year. Bill Barnwell at 11, the only guest on the show. Practice at 2 today out in Ashburn. It'll be their last full practice before the final preseason game Saturday at 12. They'll have more of a walkthrough tomorrow, but Dan Quinn is scheduled to speak at 1:30 before the practice. And I would imagine, based on what Ben Standig and a few other people that I've talked to have said, the question will be asked today about Terry McLaurin's absence on Monday night. This from Darren to kick off the show. Darren, I think I know you, by the way. This is, I think, the first, Darren, if it's the Darren that I think I've known you for a while. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, he writes, Kevin, I've been listening to you for years. I've become fluent in reading between your information lines. When you know something, you don't always say it, but you say it, if you know what I mean. But I can't figure out why you need to dance around the Terry issue. At this point, hasn't it become obvious? His agent is the issue and has been all along. Thank you, Darren, for that. And say hello to your brother, if this is the Darren that I think it is. So I know what you're saying. And yes, because reporting's not really my thing, when I do have things, it's often because it was presented in, an off the record or for background purposes or for me to be able to use to speak but intelligently with more clarity on a certain situation. But I disagree. I think I've been pretty direct on this Terry thing all along in terms of what I've known. I mentioned the agent even before the Eastern Motors, War and Peace length press conference. And I have been more supportive of the way the team has handled this since the jump. But I have to say that my support of the team wasn't based on anything I knew from the jump. It was just, I don't know. And maybe I'll turn out to be wrong because I was dead wrong on Terry getting a deal before training camp. That's for sure. But it was more, connecting the dots, making sense of what, I think makes sense, if that makes sense. But now, look, bottom line now, certainly have talked to various people over the last week and a half. And I think I've been adamant on this. I think the team is nearing very much kind of a breaking point. I think they have had it with Team Terry. And if Team Terry doesn't get a clue and get a sense of reality soon, they're going to leave $50 million on the table. And I am at that point when that gets left and is pulled and is no longer an option. I will certainly in that moment, always, open to a different version of it when we look back on it historically, if there's more information. But I will definitely think that in that moment, Terry made a massive mistake by listening to his agent and by not taking control of the situation as the player. He's the customer in that relationship. He does not have to do what his agent tells him to do if he totally disagrees with it. Yeah, I think if you want me to be, super succinct and to the point and direct, I think the team is nearing its breaking point. As I said yesterday, I thought it was pretty clear. Terry's very close to being treated as a holdout, no longer a hold-in. And we'll see what happens and what develops during the course of the week. But he is nearing that line of no return to a $50 million or whatever that number actually is, somewhere in that range, guaranteed, opportunity to put into his bank account. And I think if that does happen and he ends up playing this final year on his existing deal, he'll look back on it and view it as a massive mistake. Massive mistake. It just doesn't make any sense for a player like Terry. Okay, this isn't Jerry Rice. Somebody sent me something. I got to find it. Somebody sent me something that says, oh, well, Jerry Rice and Marvin Harrison got big deals after they were 30. Jerry Rice and Marvin Harrison. Just like with Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. We're not talking, that's apples and oranges. Terry's not those players. Even the most ardent and fanatical Terry McLaurin fans would never put him into that category. But his agent might put him into that category. But yeah, this is an opportunity that hopefully for him, he doesn't look back 2-3 years down the road and see it as a massive mistake. Because again, there's nobody in their right mind that knows what's going on from an agent side, a player side, a team side, a fan side, a media side that would say the chances of him getting what he wants next year are much greater or even equal to the chances he has of getting less, but still a lot now. Not going to happen, entering his age 31 season. Can't see it happening anyway. This from Thomas. Thomas writes, Kevin, what makes you so sure that Jayden Daniels is going to have a better sophomore year? I love when we put NFL terms in terms of freshmen and sophomores. We rarely get to junior and senior years. That's just year 3 and year 4. What makes you so convinced that Jayden Daniels is going to have a better sophomore year than his rookie season? CJ Stroud would be an example of step back. This has been a tiring subject during the off season. But off of the one play on Monday night, it just reminded, I think everybody certainly reminded me, oh my God, we have a quarterback. We have an elite level quarterback. And I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but nobody says about Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. And to me, that's the class that he's in. I do believe that. And that's why I don't see a sophomore slump season coming. But I don't see anybody ever saying about those guys, yeah, lots of comebacks, great year, but they can't duplicate it. That was Mahomes after his rookie year. That was Josh Allen after the first year starting. Lamar the same. Statistically, maybe it won't look like what it looked like last year. It's possible it'll look as good, but different. Maybe a lot more passing yards, maybe less rushing yards, maybe more touchdowns throwing than he had touchdowns running or and less touchdowns running. I don't know what it'll look like. I just don't see a player with not only the flaws that might indicate a step back season, but any sort of questions about the intangible stuff that would lead to a step back season. Like, yeah, he got a little bit full of himself. Seems to be, really enjoying that rookie of the year season that fell a game short of the Super Bowl. Still some questions about his maturity, still some questions about his work ethic. There's none of that. None of that. It's the opposite of that. People constantly offering up what a pro he is, how mature he is, how he's taking a next step in terms of leadership, more vocal leadership, booting the player out of the huddle a few weeks ago in camp. I just don't see it. I don't see the case you could make for a step back season. Now, if you want to say no Terry, I would say, but why would you say no Terry? He's under contract, repetitive, pain in the ass, constantly repeating this. But he's going to play. He has to play. Somebody mentioned to me the other day, you keep saying he has to play, and you keep saying that they're clueless and they're delusional as to what their worth is. They may be clueless and delusional as to what a holdout would cost them. That's fair. That's true. I doubt that that's the case, though. It'd be really hard for the agent to say holding out would be the best thing for you at 30 years old when, the tide is turned in terms of the way people view this thing. Maybe they don't see it that way. Sometimes when you're inside it, you don't see what people see from the outside. But how could you make the case other than to say, man, you're so good, the team's going to fall apart without you out there, and they're going to come back begging for you to play week 3 against the Raiders with the DK Metcalf deal, with, or better than the Metcalf deal and guaranteed money. $75 million guaranteed, $33 million a year, 4-year deal, most of it guaranteed. Yeah, they're going to come begging. That's that is the one plausible scenario that you get a holdout. If they are so delusional that they are looking at that as less than a long shot, less than an inside straight, and they try to play that hand. First of all, even if the team wasn't as successful offensively without him, like, it was so noticeable and it cost them, against the Giants and the Packers, and they're 0-2. I still don't think that this team's going to budge and cave to what Terry wants. I don't see that happening. I think they think it's wrong that it was, that they are just so far off, as others have reported clearly. But back to Jayden, I just don't see a fall off. I don't. I mean, injury is the one concern you have, and it's not a serious injury, but it could be a nagging injury that ends up, impacting the play. If they end up with another season of bad defensive football, the context of these games could change. That's possible. If the defense is, bad or what it was last year or even worse, and I don't see that happening. I think there's a chance it's going to be improved. I'm not going to believe it until I see it in a real game because there's so many new pieces. But I do have some level of, I think hope. Hope's a good thing, Red. I do think that year 2 alone, along with the players they had last year who were good players, Sanderstil, Luvu, Wagner, and then what they added, if those players can play, I think there's a chance they'll be better. But if they are what they were last year or even a step back, that could change the context of games. There wasn't really a moment other than the opener last year where they didn't have a chance to win a game that they were in. Every single game they were in last year, with the exception of the NFC Championship game, but even that game, hate to keep coming back to this because many people, especially Philly fans, laugh and they just hold up 55-23. But the truth is it was 34-23 and Washington was driving with the football and they had been moving the football and they had a chance, if not for another turnover, to make it 34-29 or 34-31 late third quarter, early fourth quarter. That would have been a ball game. I don't think they would have ever won because they couldn't stop Philadelphia. Philadelphia could have named their number in that championship game. 55 was where it landed, but if it needed to be 65, it would have been that. That's how bad Washington was defensively in the game. But last year, other than the opener and then the title game, they were in every game, every single game. The Baltimore game on the road, the Pittsburgh game at home, the Philly game on the road on that Thursday night. They had the lead going into the fourth quarter. I didn't feel like they were the better team. I felt like they were fortunate to have that lead, and I think the better team won that game that night. The Dallas game, missed extra point from overtime. They were in every game. We know this. Every game seemed to come down to the last drive or the last quarter. And the context, if your defense is bad again this year, could be different. If there's pressure to score on almost every drive, or let's just say, an average of 10 drives per game, 10 and a half drives per game, I think is the average. You got to score on 50 to 60% of them to have a chance. That kind of context is, that can wear a team out, that can put a team into one-dimensional football. if they're behind. And you could see some moments from Jayden that maybe you didn't see last year. Pressing, down 2 scores, fourth quarter, taking chances that you wouldn't necessarily take if the context of the game was different. But overall, man, I don't see at all a chance of him like being a completely different player, or even a step back where we're like, yeah, that wasn't the guy we saw last year. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. All right. I want to get to this. We've now had the 2 preseason games, and Saturday's game is honestly not a game that's going to matter much. I doubt many people who are going to play or even be on the roster in week 1, but more importantly, be contributors in week 1, they're likely going to be held out of this Baltimore game. It may have been different had the Baltimore game been on a Saturday at 12 after a Saturday night game against Cincinnati. But, short week, and doubly short week because it's not a Sunday game. It's a Saturday game after a Monday night game. Nobody's playing on Saturday, more likely than not. So we have, what we have in terms of what we've been able to watch, along with, a lot of joint practice discussion and intra-squad scrimmage discussion. And we're now nearing that point where, look, we are no longer, in the summer weeks of no football. There's college football, real college football this Saturday. Next week, you'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night college football. And that'll lead us into week 1. We'll have cuts coming up, late next week. Is that the cut down date? Pull that up. I think it's late next week. The cut down to 53. Pulling up
date. Right now.
I think it's like Thursday at 4. Is that right?
August 26th, 4 p.m. Yeah. Most clubs must reduce roster to a maximum.
August 26th would be a week from yesterday. That would be Tuesday at 4.
Correct.
Okay. So the cut down to 53 is Tuesday at 4. That'll be an interesting day, I guess. I think they go into these things, most teams, with basically, 49 to 51 of the players they know. And, especially with teams that are really good, it's the battle for 2 to 3, sometimes 4 to 5 roster spots. Anyway, here's what I want to know. We've gone through now more than, half of camp, preseason, et cetera, and we're going to get into very quickly the countdown days to the opener. What concerns you the most? Thomas believes that it's a step back year for the quarterback. What's your number one concern as it relates to this team entering the regular season? And obviously, Terry McLaurin is a concern, even if you're team front office like I am in terms of who's handling it more. I want both sides to win here. I want both sides to feel good about it. I want a deal. That's what I want the conclusion to be. But in terms of, a somewhat intellectual conversation, most of our conversations are not. But, who do you think's handling it the best? I think the team's been handling it the best. That's the way I feel. And I feel that I'm pretty close to right on that. But there could be some history down the road that says, yeah, some of this that was happening in the moment wasn't what it appeared to be. But anyway, what's your number one concern entering the regular season? Be specific too. Just the defense is a concern for me, no doubt. I'm going into this thinking offensively with Cliff, with Jayden, with an improved offensive line, with Debo, with Terry, because I'm assuming he will be there, with Ertz, as Doc referred to Ertz on my podcast the other day, called him Jayden's Binky. I just think offensively, I'm confident that this is going to be a really good football team again. A top 5-ish kind of offense in the NFL. I am concerned about the defense, but I'll get specific in terms of what my biggest concern is defensively when we come back. But at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980, what is the thing that's bothering you the most about our team as we will be in very shortly the countdown mode to the regular season? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can download the Odyssey app, and from there, you can watch this show on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. One worry, number one concern heading into the 2025 season. We've seen a couple of preseason games. Honestly, I don't think that any of what my concern is comes from either of the two games. But what is it? 301 230 0980. I want to hear, as we are getting closer to the regular season, what you're concerned about. So I have a number one, but I also want to mention something else. And I'm going to mention the something else first, and then Max will weigh in as well. The something else is this. The NFC, to me, looks loaded. Like, I think that there are some really good football teams. Clearly, Philadelphia is a really good football team, not just in production off of last year, but, on paper. They are good. And by the way, the star that's coming, and it's coming sooner rather than later, is the rookie Campbell out of Alabama that they traded up one spot to take at number 31. This dude, if you read anything that's coming out of Philadelphia, they think they have an absolute stud linebacker and playmaker on defense. Like they needed more of them, with Davis and Carter and Bond and Dean, who, by the way, was out during the latter half of the preseason. And then the young corners, Mitchell and DeJean. This is a team that on paper should be unbelievable defensively. Defense sometimes fools you. Got it. Still, look out for Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, number one. But I think the NFC, this is my ancillary concern, that Washington could be a really good team. And yet, in their own division, Philly, Dallas healthy might be a threat. I still think Dallas has a major issue defensively against the run. I think that's their biggest problem. By the way, that could be our biggest problem as well. I think the Giants are just flat out better than most people think, but I've thought that the last couple of years and been dead wrong. It's going to come down to quarterback. I still think Detroit is incredibly capable. They are healthier on defense. They'll have Aiden Hutchinson back. I think Green Bay is a good football team and a well-coached football team. If J.J. McCarthy is legit, then I think Minnesota's got a very good team and an exceptionally well-coached team. I think Tampa is good, and I think the Rams and the 49ers are both teams capable. If they remain healthy, Stafford, clearly the health issue with the Rams, and San Francisco with all of their key players. Remember, other than Debo, they still have their star players. It's just a matter of whether or not they'll be ready to play. Christian McCaffrey will be able to play 17 games. Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. They have A level, if not A plus level, star players. And Brandon Ayuk not going to be back probably until sometime in month 2. But we'll see. So just as kind of an ancillary, it's not my number one, but and you never know how these things play out. Health means so much. But God, the NFC all of a sudden has turned to there are many capable teams. And in the, overall of the league, the best team in the NFL likely exists in the NFC and specifically in the NFC East. Now, my number one concern is the ability to stop the run. 26th last year per DVOA. They obviously went out and tried to change the look. They wanted to get bigger up front. They did that with Kinlaw. We'll find out whether or not a couple of the other guys even make the team or end up being contributors. But they wanted to get bigger with the Wises and the Kinlaws of the world. And they look bigger. And, the other night, again, it's preseason. Cincinnati went into that game with sort of a makeshift offensive line situation. But I thought Washington up front was pretty good. And I thought Kinlaw and a couple of others looked the part. We'll see when we get to the opener against the Giants. But last year, it was the biggest problem. And there's nothing that says until we see real games that they have fixed that problem. And with this team this year, they need to have fixed the problem because it starts with a guy like Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, and that's the least of it. Week 2, it's Josh Jacobs, a borderline elite level back in the NFL. Week 3, they'll get the rookie in Ashton Genty. Week 4, you could argue one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the league in Bijan Robinson. Week 5, you get the LA situation with the rookie out of North Carolina, Omarion Hampton, and Najee Harris. The Monday nighter against Chicago, maybe not a lot to be concerned about, although DeAndre Swift basically turned that game around before the Hail Mary with that long touchdown run in the third quarter that got Chicago back into that game. And then you go after Chicago. Hold on, let me pull the schedule back up. I just lowered it. Then you get Dallas, and you get their situation. I wouldn't say at this point that they've got, a dominant back. I've always been a Javonte Williams fan. He's just never been able to stay healthy, but we don't know what the rookie, Jayden Blue from Texas, will look like. And then you get, after him, you get Kansas City. Then you get Seattle and their backs. I mean, Seattle's loaded with running backs. They have Kenneth Walker III. They've got Zach Charbonnet. They've got the rookie Damian Martinez. I don't know how he'll find his way into a lineup with those particular backs. After Seattle, you get Jahmyr Gibbs. Then you get Devon Achane. Then you get, Aaron Jones. Then you get, oh, by the way, Saquon Barkley twice to end the season. The number one key to beating Washington week in and week out, we always do the keys to beating the opponent. The keys to beating Washington, if you're doing that segment in every other NFL market before you play Washington, is keep number 5 off the field. Keep number 5 and that offense off the field. How do you do that? By controlling the football. What's the best way to do that? By grinding it out, by keeping the football and being balanced, yes, but being able to run it when you want to run it. And to me, that would be my number one concern. Like, there is nothing that says to me in the opener against the Giants that they're just going to completely shut down the Giant offense and the Giant running game. Giants have a decent offensive line. They have the ability to, if you load the box, to kill you with Malik Neighbors, for sure. So Tracy, I thought, had a good rookie season. I thought it was an underrated rookie season. He was a 4th-round pick out of Purdue. 4th-round pick, something like that. He rushed for 800. Here it is, 5th-round pick. He rushed for 839 yards last year on a bad team, averaged 4.4 yards per carry. He had some games too, man. He had some games against a good defensive team, Pittsburgh. That was a Monday night game, 20 carries, 145 yards, and a touchdown in a game that they were in, 7.3 yards per carry. In the 2 games, he didn't really play in the first game, didn't play until starting really in week 5 as a rookie. And his first game in which he got a bunch of carries, 18 for 129 against Seattle in week 5 last year. But in that really good game in the Meadowlands, he was 16 for 66, 4.1 yards. I thought he was effective. So there's nothing that says to me that the Giants can't grind it out, can't, stay on the field with their running game and with some 3rd and shorts and 4th and shorts and limit the possessions that Washington has offensively. That's my number one concern, is that Washington struggles again defensively, but specifically against the run, and teams are able to basically, meet that number one key to beating Washington, which is keep Jayden on the sideline. Before we get to the calls, Max, what's your number one concern?
So you're spot on with the run stopping thing. And throughout the preseason, I've kind of noticed, I understand it's preseason, but when the starters have been out there, and even when they haven't been, teams have really been able to run the football kind of all over. Like and the measurement I kind of stack up or measure up to when you're a defense is, can you stop them when they need a yard? And we saw that in the preseason game, literally 2 nights ago against the Bengals, where they needed a yard. They got it right into the end zone. Now, Quan Martin tried his best, but it just didn't work out. And so I'm absolutely with you on that being a concern. Another one for me is just general health of the team going forward. Because last year they got really lucky in terms of like injuries and stuff like that. And I understand it's football. Everyone's always going to play hurt. But like, how healthy is Marcus Mariota at backup quarterback just in case Jayden Daniels does end up going down? Are we going to have to roll Josh Johnson out there at some point, which God help us all.
We're really not going to get into the conversation about being concerned about the 3rd string quarterback.
Fair enough.
Are we?
No, but
because I will tell you, if we get to Josh Johnson, this season is over.
For sure.
If we get to Marcus Mariota, the competitive portion of the season is likely over.
Absolutely. But not only that in the quarterback room, but like just kind of around the rest of the team, the pieces surrounding Jayden. Terry coming back late, is that going to affect him coming into this season? How healthy is Brandon Coleman? So and these pieces on the offensive line that are supposed to be protecting Jayden, but if they're hurt, well, then he might be scrambling just as much as he did last year. And now Trey Amos is dealing with a little bit of a hamstring thing. So I'm seeing all of these little just kind of nicks here and there. And I mean, they could turn into something throughout the season. They may not. But I mean, the depth at corner is these guys have got to stay healthy, because after Noah it's a good bit of drop off with that secondary. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of concern. It's mostly injury at this point.
All right, let's get to the phone lines. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What's your number one concern heading into this season? Let's start with Tom in Columbia. Tom, go ahead.
Maxims of one, you have to effectively run the ball, and 2, defensively stop the ball, ties directly into this team's success. And I think you hit on it with the defensive line and in general the defense itself is directly going to affect Jayden Daniels. For example, if we're playing in the hole a lot of the season and suddenly his passing attempts are going sky high, it's going to open up opportunities. He'll have sky-high yardage. His touchdowns might be up, but his interceptions and turnovers are probably going to correlate with that. But I think if the defensive line can be stout, it's going to allow the offense to flourish in levels we've never seen. But the problem is that, and I think this is due to fantasy and Madden, everybody tends to look at a statistical line on Jayden Daniels to determine his success. And I think that if you change that lens to, we're looking at championship level success, which means you got to stop the run. Because if you don't stop the run, the other team's going to flourish. Jayden Daniels is going to be playing in a hole, coming from behind, and it opens up the other team just to attack, and it opens him up to injury. So everything's predicated on those two maxims that cover all generations of football: run the ball effectively on offense and stop the run. So I think that's where they're putting their off-season emphasis on. They got to stop the run because it's going to affect Jayden Daniels and the team.
Yeah, good call, Tom, and I agree with all that. You know, it's funny, during the course of the season last year, I kept saying you just can't win in January. You can get to January, but you can't win in January if you can't stop the run. And I was saying that during the course of the season as they continued to have issues stopping the run, and yet they were still winning games. And, you know, you talk about the context, I talk about the context of games. If you can't, you know, get off the field, if you can't stop the run, and what it would put the offense. Look, they were in those positions last year a few times. I mean, you know, the Philadelphia game, although ironically, what put them in that position in the Philadelphia game were their own turnovers. But that wasn't the case in the Atlanta game, and they came from 2 scores down. Jayden's capable of week in and week out, you know, even with the context sideways in terms of how it would tilt towards, you know, win probability for the other team. He's still capable of overcoming that. But, you know, ultimately, you know, even against Detroit, where Jahmyr Gibbs was going for 10 yards a carry, they were just unstoppable on offense, but it did catch up with him, right? Saquon Barkley rips off a 60-yard run on first down on the first play from scrimmage, and Philadelphia rushes for 240 yards or whatever, and it's 55-23. I am still a believer, even though it was tested last season, that you can't be a sieve against the run and expect to win in January. You can be great offensively, and that can get you to 10 and get you into the postseason, but it is really hard to win a couple in a row or 3 in a row if you're not the 1 seed, if you can't stop the run. So that is number 1 for me. You know, and we talked about this when the season ended. The trenches had to change, both sides of the ball, but really on defense, they had to get better, and they had to get better on the edge in particular. All right, let's go to Steve in Columbia. Steve, your number 1 concern heading into 25, your number 1 worry is what?
My number 1 worry is depth behind the starting linebackers. 1A, depth behind the starting wide receivers. And I'll just add, I love Terry, want him back, need him back. Even with him, there were times last year when the receivers were not getting open. And I don't want Jayden to think he has to do everything and be Superman. That's when you run into problems. But those are my concerns. I just don't think there's anybody who stepped up on the linebacker side or the receiver side to date.
Yeah, I'm with you. The linebackers, I think I'm a little bit less with you, because I do still have some belief in guys like Jordan McGee, and I'm a fan of Kane Medrano and maybe his possibilities, although, you know, he is more of a linebacker and is looked at, you know, during this preseason.
Kevin, Jordan McGee hasn't been on the he can't get on the field.
Who?
He can't stay healthy.
McGee, you're talking. Yeah, no, I understood.
Or whatever his name is, yeah.
I think a guy like, you know, I think a guy like Tyler Owens can really play in the box a lot too. But wide receiver, no doubt, you know, depth is an issue. It was an issue last year, of course. It was an issue last year, and they were still one of the best 5 offenses in the NFL. But to your point, do we want to put as much on the quarterback? Well, they do that in Buffalo. They do that in Kansas City. They do that in Baltimore. And if the offensive line is significantly improved, you know, there's some hope that you'll be able to run the football with more than just your quarterback this year. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Jay, Tony, Billy, Lou, Lap, everybody else on hold. Stay there. We've got an open line. What's your number one worry heading into the upcoming season? All of our Team 980 training camp and preseason coverage is brought to you nationally by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
All right, here's what's happening on this Wednesday, August 20th. Mike Garafolo has said that there is certainly interest in Brian Robinson from other teams. The big question they're asking is why he fell out of favor with the Commanders. DQ said at his post-game presser on Monday, quote, "He's certainly somebody we respect a lot," end quote. And according to multiple reports from across the NFL, multiple teams are calling around the league looking to acquire veteran wide receiver. Teams interested include the Minnesota Vikings, San Francisco 49ers, New York Jets, and New England Patriots. And the Washington Nationals are calling up number one overall pick Eli Willits to High A Fredericksburg and could make his debut as soon as tomorrow. Speaking of the Nats, they fall to the Mets last night by a score of 8-1. The woes continue for Jake Irvin as he gives up 5 runs in the third inning and 1 more in the 6th for good measure. David Peterson with a strong outing for the Mets as he goes 8 innings, only giving up a single run. The Nats will continue their series versus the Mets tonight. Brad Lord taking the mound versus Kodai Senga. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Bill Barnwell, ESPN, coming up at 11. We'll talk a lot of NFL with him. We'll get his thoughts on our team as well. What are your thoughts about the concerns you have about this team entering 2025? What's your number one worry? For me, it's stopping the run. And then ancillary to that, I've got several ancillaries, and if they don't get mentioned, I'll mention them. But I did mention one of the, sort of runner-ups, distant runner-up, but I think the NFC is loaded, man. The NFC on paper looks tough. I mean, last year, you needed to get into the postseason last year. You needed 10 wins to get into the postseason. I'm sorry, you needed 11 wins to get into the postseason as a wild card. God, that's impressive last year, right? Washington, the wild cards after the 4 division winners were 14-3, 12-5, and 11-6. 10-7 Seattle didn't get in. I could see something like that if everybody's healthy, and there's other teams that could get introduced into the mix, like the 49ers that weren't in the mix last year because of injuries. 301-230-0980. Let's get to the phones. Jay in Columbia. Jay, go ahead. No, Jay. I'm sorry. Tony and Frederick, go.
Hey, how are you doing today?
What's up, Tony? What's your number one worry?
A number one worry for the Washington Commanders this season is the overconfidence of the fans, thinking that last season somehow correlates in this season. Last season they played a fifth-place schedule. Last place schedule. This season they're going to play a second-place schedule. The AFC teams they are going to play are going to be tough. There is no Cleveland in the AFC West. Those teams are all going to give an even match. And as not a Commanders fan, what I've found out is my team seems to go about 2-2 in those non-conference games just because we don't practice for those teams except once every 4 years, and it's kind of a worry. And can I ask you a question?
You may.
And this is just something. And if the quarterback is top 5 in the NFL, like everyone happens to say, he should be able to elevate his wide receiver core without Terry McLaurin, like every quarterback ahead of him, with the exception of Burrow does. Have a great day, sir.
Yeah, I think that last part, I do think he elevates everything around him. And we saw it with Mahomes and we saw it with Josh Allen last year. The big difference is those two teams were very good defensively as well. The idea, I mean, I don't think it matters what the fans think. I think it matters what they think. And I do think that they are well coached. I mean, Coach Joe was always the best at this. He's one of the all-time greats in NFL history and really an early adopter to the understanding of this, that nothing from last year translates to the following year. There's no given. Now, quarterback's important, and he never had, other than Joe early, the Super Bowl quarterbacks were 3 different ones. But the idea Joe used to say all the time, nothing we did last year means anything to this year. It's a totally different team. It's a totally different environment, and we got to figure out each team each year. And he was so good at that. He was so good at recognizing it was a week-to-week league. That wasn't the thinking back then. He was way ahead of it, understanding that week to week, you could be a completely different team than you were the week before. And that all 55,000 better be there for the Phoenix Cardinals or the St. Louis Cardinals, or we're going to get our asses kicked even though we're 17-point favorites. He really understood that. So there is a lot of that. And some of it comes down to things that Tony just mentioned. Tougher schedule. It's not just the AFC West. You got the NFC North on the schedule. Now, the schedule game is a tricky game as well. Doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to work out. Let's go to our guy, Mike in Reston. Mike, what's your number one worry?
Yeah, what's going on, Kevin, man? I love the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, my number one word, I actually have two. Just like with everybody that's obviously worried about Jayden Daniels not sliding, because everybody keeps saying that safety took up on him in the preseason game was the Bengals. I was like, get out, please get out. But my biggest thing is seeing if the team can replicate what they did last year with a tougher schedule. The schedule last year wasn't as tough as it is this year. I think we got either the fifth or seventh hardest schedule in the league this year. So my biggest concern is being able to play against those top 10 caliber teams that we may have to play this year. Thanks for the call, Kev.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think there's a chance that we're just a much better offensive team than we were even last year. And that, the number of close games against, by the way, average to subpar opponents at times, that there aren't as many of those. I think that chance exists, but it's only going to be that if the defense is improved. If the defense is improved, I think the offensive, ability, I think the consistency will be there again, as long as you've got that quarterback and you've got that coordinator kind of understand what they have. I think they're creative. It's about what they are defensively. Like I would hate to be in a game, 2 weeks from Sunday that is, 31-28 in the fourth quarter because you can't get off the field defensively and you haven't had enough possessions. You've had 6 total possessions. You've scored 4 touchdowns, but you're still down 3 in a life or death situation because you can't get off the field. I could see that in a lot of games this year. I'm hoping that's not the case. Let's go to Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, what's your number one worry?
Thanks for taking my call, Kevin.
Sure, Gary.
It's the defense. It's the defense. I've called your show before. I don't think they've upgraded the defense. I just don't think they've upgraded the defense. I think what they've done is they just moved chess pieces, okay? And they've gotten a little bit bigger in the middle, but I'm just not sold that they're improved. And that translates to this tougher schedule, not just the schedule, but it's the quarterbacks, the level of quarterbacks that they have to play against.
Yeah.
That can impact the offense because the offense may not have as many chances to score points because they're not a bunch of 3 and outs for the majority of the game. So that's my major concern there is the defense, and that just spread and that goes up against these major quarterbacks that they're going to be playing against. And I think you said it before on your show, they played the worst set of quarterbacks of any team in the league last year. And that's not going to happen this year if there are no injuries. So those are my concerns, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, it is, Love, Herbert, Dak twice, Mahomes, Goff, Tua, Jalen twice. Yeah, I mean, that and all of the backs that I mentioned, they're facing a slew on paper right now of much better offensive football teams than they faced last year. Lap, what's your number one worry?
Hey, what's up, Kevin?
Hey,
I'm going to say the defense as well. I think they need to, if they're not going to be a top-tier defense, it's things that they can do to improve. Just, get stops on third downs, hold teams to field goals, but play a disciplined, sound football, complete unit, you know what I'm saying? And that everybody's out there hustling, making plays. And that's all you can ask for because if they're not going to upgrade the areas that we need them to upgrade, and we're not getting stops, we're not stopping the run or anything like that, man, it's going to be a long season because you're going to be dependent on Jayden too much. So I'm just hoping it's a much better improved defense, and we'll see what happens, man. But, that's my take on it.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Lap. Let's get Billy and Chantilly in here. Go ahead, Billy.
Kevin, I've got a couple. Good morning to you. The first is that they're going to win the Super Bowl with the stupid name and these stupid uniforms.
That's your number one worry?
No, I got a couple.
What? Weirdly? Not weirdly.
Order.
I have that worry too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're legacy fans, Kevin. Yeah. We've spent a lifetime rooting this team on it. To see that Super Bowl with this, with this name is, I would accept it begrudgingly.
You'd accept it.
Number two,
yeah.
Art imitates life, as they say, and I don't know if you've noticed the similarity in the storyline between the film Jerry Maguire and this saga with Terry. And for the younger fans, I can't believe I just watched the movie recently that It came out in 1996. So I'd recommend
did it come out in 96? God,
I lost my mind when I read that. I lost my mind.
I honestly would have said 2000, 2001, something like that.
So the younger fans, Kevin, great film on that I think parallels what we're going through right now. And hopefully we have a happy ending like that film did. And in light of that story, we need to find Buddy Baker a girlfriend, because I think he's the biggest holdup in this whole thing. And Jerry Maguire character being the agent representing Rod Tidwell. This is a similar scenario. We got to get this Buddy Baker a girlfriend so he can get his focus back on getting this Commanders team fully staffed. And the final one, Kevin, is that the rest of the league is just going to know how good Jayden is. And they pay the other teams too. Jayden's the best that's ever played, but they're going to adjust to him. So we'll see how well he progresses.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. I have a really good friend of mine who's a massive Cowboys fan, lifelong, the whole thing. And he's like, you've been watching football long enough. The league will adjust to him. I'm like, really? Did they adjust to Mahomes yet? Did they adjust to Lamar yet? Have they adjusted to Josh Allen yet? Have they adjusted to Joe Burrow? The great ones don't get adjusted to.
Absolutely.
By the way, I was not a big Renee Zellweger fan in that movie. Not a big fan of hers in general. Thank you, Billy. Appreciate it. Let's finish it up with our guy, Anthony in Alney. Anthony, go ahead. What's your number one worry?
How you doing, Kevin? First time caller. But
Anthony, nice to have you on.
For years. I don't really have any concerns, but I just had to call because I'm kind of tired of everybody talking about. I've heard all summer about we playing a tougher schedule, we playing the best quarterbacks. Well, if you don't play the best teams and the best quarterback, how are you going to get to where you need to go? So I am.
Well, sometimes you don't, and you get into the spot where at least you have a chance to get to where you go. I understand if the concern, like it is with me, is defense. They're facing, at least as of now, and things can change. It's not a matter of who you play; it's when you play them. But it's going to be much more challenging because the context of some of these games could be different because of the capability of the opponent, the opponent's offense versus last year. But go ahead, finish up, Anthony.
Yeah, Kevin, I understand that. And the two callers ago said the defense hasn't improved. I don't know what he's watching.
I haven't watched anything yet. They haven't played a game that's mattered with their starters on the field for a long period of time.
Right. I know it's all on paper. Let's just say, all on paper, like to me, that the defense has improved. Now, we'll see when they get on the field. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, Anthony, thanks for listening and thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. Those that I missed, I apologize. I did see a couple of you guys were going to say health of number 5. Yeah, that to me is number one worry, but wanted to be specific about the defense. I also, the number of fourth down conversions, 20 of 23 historic. Let's just figure on that not being historic again. I still think they'll be an excellent fourth down team because they have a cheat code at quarterback. And so those possessions that were kept alive with 20 fourth down conversions, several of them meant the difference, including in a playoff game, between winning and losing. And then the kicking game, we had an issue, and Matt Gay's going to be huge. They're going to be, I think, more close games, not as many as last year, because I think there's a chance we win games by sizable margins this year. Not every game. But the kicking game, I don't have a really good sense as to whether or not they've, definitively improved in that area. And it played a huge role last year, both in wins and losses. And by the way, same with the opponent's kicking game. Bill Barnwell from ESPN next. This summer, your AC's been working overtime because it has been hot, although it's been nice this week. But the heat and humidity have increased your air conditioning bills, maybe exponentially, especially if you've got older windows. If you've got older windows, 10 years of age or older, my recommendation is to give Window Nation a call and have them come out and give you a free estimate for new windows. You'll save a ton on air conditioning and heating bills. Your home will look much better. You know, you need high quality, best insulated windows versus those old builder grade windows. And right now you can get access to Window Nation's most popular offer of the year, 50% off all window styles. You don't have to pay anything for 2 years. No money down, no payments, and no interest for 2 full years. The first step is to call Window Nation at 866-90Nation or to go to windownation.com. Tell them that I told you to call. They'll schedule a free in-home estimate, no obligation, no pressure. They'll schedule it for you when it's convenient for you. It'll take an hour or less. You'll actually find out which windows need to be replaced. Window Nation was recently ranked highest on the Forbes list of best window installation companies. You can trust Window Nation for high-quality, affordable windows with first-class customer service. 866-90Nation. windownation.com. All right, joining us right now is one of my favorites, Bill Barnwell, writer for ESPN.com, at Bill Barnwell on X, on Twitter. By the way, I saw that you just tweeted out something, and this will be my next read. I guess you were a contributor as a quote or two in this story in the Wall Street Journal about college football. You know, the title of the story, it's run out of geniuses, and Mike Leach and Chip Kelly are, you know, front and center on it. So I that may be another conversation for another day, because I think, you know, without you getting into the details of this, I've always said, Bill, and I'm wondering if you feel the same way, the innovation in football, especially on offense, has always come from lower levels, high school and college in particular. The NFL's always, you know, taken ideas from those levels of football on offense. True or not?
I agree with you. I should say I did not contribute to this article, so I just read it. But I agree with you. I do think that necessity is the mother of invention, right? I mean, if you're a high school team and you're playing a school that has significantly better athletes than you, or a college team where you're playing schools that have significantly more resources for recruiting, better athletes than you, you have to invent, you have to create, you have to do something that other teams are not doing. And this is not just a on-field thing. I think about, you know, going back 25 years now to the beginning of the analytics era in baseball and Moneyball. The Oakland A's started using data, started using numbers because they couldn't compete financially. Right. If you are not able to compete, you do that. But the difference is in the NFL, obviously everyone, at least in theory, has access to the same resources. There's not that, you know, you're not going up against 35 stars and you have no 5 stars. There's gaps, there's differences, but you have to do it at the high school level. You have to do it at the college level. So I think that is the necessity of the mother invention is a real thing when it comes to sports. And so I don't think there's the same pressure, or has been the same pressure, to create and evolve at the NFL level in the last 40 years as there's been at the college level.
You know, it's so funny. I was watching Moneyball the other day. Just randomly, it was on, and whenever it's on, it's like, you know, it's that list of like 10 to 15 movies that when it's on, it's like, oh God, I gotta watch it. And then you're stupid to watch it with the commercials. But I think my favorite line in that movie is the initial session with Billy Beane and his scouts. And you see, first of all, one guy's like, who's Fabio? But the other guy says, well, his girlfriend's ugly. She's a 6. Well, what does that mean? It means he's got a lack of confidence. That whole scene sets the table for the rest of it, but it's such a great scene. All right. So before we get into, you know, our team and the 5 most likely that you wrote about to take a step back, the 5 most likely to take a step forward, do you take anything out of the preseason?
Yes and no. It depends on the context of what I'm looking for. So I do take usage. I do think usage matters. Are you playing with the 1s? Are you playing with the 2s? How are people using you? How are people using your, how are you being used in the context of the team? That stuff does matter to me. And I do want to see, sort of, can you compete against guys on your level? Are you dominant? If you're a backup, are you dominating the guys around you? Okay, that's meaningful. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a great player, but maybe you have the ability to graduate up. If you're playing with the ones, do you look like you belong? But in terms of the scheme, in terms of what we're actually going to see from teams during the regular season, no. And I do go back to, that famous back in the previous days, when Washington played the Saints in week 1. And they had not run any of the zone read stuff. They were going to run with RG3, and the Saints looked like they had seen ghosts the entire game. It was, that's an extreme example, but I do think if you're an offensive coach, if you're a defensive coach, you might dial up a blitz or two. You might dial up, a run concept or two you like, but I think it does at this point make sense to kind of keep your motion, keep the stuff that you're game planning. You're not game planning against a team. You're not coming up with stuff that's going to match what they do. So in terms of like the scheme, in terms of what we're seeing, I don't think so. I'm thinking, can you transcend versus what the expectations are for you on a given play, and who are you playing with are the two most important things.
Yeah, I think it's even less so now because you just don't see the players that are going to play in regular season games on the field much. By the way, back to the 2012 opener, shock and awe, as we called it around these parts, the opener, the RG3 debut against the Saints. The funny thing is, in a mini camp session, they were lining him up in the pistol, Bill. And I said, that's the pistol. That's what Nevada runs in college, because I'm a bigger college football fan than I am a pro football fan. And like somebody eventually, I talked about it on the air, and somebody came over and said, that's not really the pistol. You don't really know what you're talking about. And of course it was. It was. And they debuted it against the Saints. And, it was, something that no one could have ever planned for. All right.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I agree with you. It's funny because the Chiefs ran it for a year, like 5 years earlier with Tyler Thigpen, and it was in and out of the league. And I was like, well, that was a cool little quirk. We'll never see that again. And then shows up with the Commanders, and it's a totally different offense.
Well, remember, too, because a lot of people that cover the NFL just don't watch a lot of college football. You can tell you had, major reporters and analysts calling it the wishbone and calling it the veer. And I was hearing all these names. I'm like, oh, my God, just watch college football one Saturday. This is, and the idea that it was the Wildcat and that it would be shut down. Mike said to me, Shanahan said to me very early on, 11-on-11 football is why this will never go away. When the quarterback's involved in the run game, you've got 10 blocking instead of 9 blocking when he hands the ball off to a running back. It's never going to go away if you've got that guy that is a good decision maker. He doesn't even have to be super athletic, and we've seen that over the years. Not every quarterback that runs dual threat stuff, zone read, etc., is the fastest guy. It's just decision making, ball handling, things like that.
Yeah, and you go back to the beginning of last season with Jayden Daniels. Remember how sparse they were and how specific and concise they were with when they used Jayden Daniels as an actual runner. The threat of Jayden Daniels as a runner changed the math for the defense because they had to account for him, even though I'm guessing on first and second down on a lot of those plays, he was just giving. There was not like a read, even though he might be looking like he was reading, he was always giving the ball. It was always going to be a handoff. But then on third and fourth down, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, that was a situation where he had the ability to read. There were some design run stuff. In the red zone, they would run design runs with Jayden Daniels. They were very selective, but even just the threat of him doing it 20% of the time meant teams had to account for it 100% of the time. And that, even if you're not running at all, they can still make a difference on how defenses have to approach you.
100% right. I remember again, Kyle and Mike saying it's the presentation of Robert as a potential runner on every play. Even if it's not an option, even if we are, it is going to be a handoff. That's what we're doing, or we're going to go play action. He said early on, he said, the presentation of my quarterback as a runner on every play is the best pass pro that you can provide the quarterback. because of the hesitation the defense had on that first, kind of mesh, with the runner in the backfield. Back then it was Alfred Morris. Yeah. Interesting.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about what you just wrote about yesterday. The 5 teams predicting the teams most likely to decline from last year's performance. I won't bury the lead. Washington is one of those teams that you have on this list. Why?
Oh, we were having such fun reminiscing about the old days and just of how great. Now I have to sit here and disparage the Commanders. I mean, there's elements of what we saw last year that are tough to sustain. And I think if you're a Commanders fan, you can probably be realistic and say, okay, yeah, we're not going to get a Hail Mary to win a game again. We're not going to have, they lost this game, actually. We're not going to get an 86-yard Terry McLaurin touchdown in the final 30 seconds of the game against the Cowboys. That stuff, I think people are realistic about these days. But what I do think is, I look at how they played and how they won games last year. They were 8-2 in one-score games. History tells us that is tough to keep up year after year. Even if you have a great coach, even if you have a great quarterback, and I think the Commanders do in both cases, that is tough to keep up year after year. I look at how they won, and I mentioned the fourth down stuff, and they're great on fourth down, and I expect them to be very good on fourth down again. They were 20 of 23 on fourth down during the regular season. There's never been a team that's been as active on fourth down that converted as often as the Commanders did on fourth down last year ago. And they got 115 points on drives that included at least one fourth down conversion last year. Most of any team we can find in our data, I would assume, because teams go for it more often on fourth down now than they did in the past, the most in NFL history. That's sort of like the quantitative stuff. We can talk about the roster stuff and some of the construction stuff, but I would start there just in terms of as good as they are, as good as I think Jayden Daniels is, they were so incredible in those very meaningful situations that it's tough for me to see them keeping that up again.
So what about I went back and looked at a couple of things. First of all, last year, Patrick Mahomes had 7 game-winning drives, 5 fourth-quarter comebacks. I don't think, does anybody, and I haven't read your write-up on Kansas City yet because you've got Kansas City on the list. Does anybody think, because he is a cheat code, which, by the way, I would say that Jayden Daniels might be as well, is anybody predicting that he's not capable of that this year? He may not face those situations, the same number of situations, but if he does, there's no math that says he's going to go backwards if he's faced with that many situations because he is a cheat code, right?
Right. To me, it's not Patrick Mahomes is going to be bad in those situations, but it's just the other stuff that came into play for a team like the Chiefs is not going to happen again. They blocked a 35-yard field goal against the Broncos that was going to win them the game. That's not going to happen again. The Raiders aren't going to fumble a snap in field goal range when they're down 2 like they did. Isaiah Likely split in the opener last year. By a toenail, he was out of bounds, and the Ravens were going to go for 2. Who knows if they get it, but, that's not going to happen again. It's not that these guys aren't good. It's just you have a really small sample for some of these situations. For a fourth down, hitting 50% of your fourth downs in a good year is a good number. The Commanders were at 80% last year.
Sure.
So even if they're still one of the best teams in the league on fourth down, that's still a major step backwards. And that leads to, shorter fields for the opposing team, depending on where the fourth downs are, obviously fewer points. That can swing a game or two on its own. So, there are these things that even if you're really good at something, it is just so tough to be a historical outlier. And to me, I think in those fourth down situations, they were not just great, they were a historic generational outlier on fourth down versus the rest of the league.
Right. And I get that. And I was going to bring up another example, which is I went back and I looked at Josh Allen's first year as a full-time starter. Another, inside straight multiple times in multiple games. They went 10-6, if you recall. They were in that playoff game and they ended up losing to the Texans. But he had like 5 game-winning drives, 4 fourth quarter comebacks. The next year he didn't have quite as many because he didn't need them. They were dominant offensively. And they annihilated a lot of teams. So how do you deal with that possibility that year 2 ends up being even a better quarterback, a better offensive football team, and they're not faced with the context of having to deliver on 20 of 23 fourth downs?
That's totally true. And that is absolutely, I think, a realistic possibility for the Commanders, is that their underlying level of play improves dramatically. And I'll bring up a team that I was very wrong about last year, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles, where the numbers said they were likely to decline. And what changed, of course, is that they had a defense that went from having a bunch of holes to an all-pro linebacker they weren't expecting in Zach Bond, 2 star cornerbacks, young guys, and
rookies,
Mitchell and DeJean. You know, they got better, and then they had Saquon, who's a first-team All-Pro as well. They got such a significant impact from their players that their underlying level of play improved. So they didn't need to win as many close games. They didn't need to, convert as many tush pushes or fourth downs. Their margin for error increased dramatically. And so we'll talk about the 2025 Commanders, I'm sure, and their underlying level of play and the changes they've made. But to me, that's the story I think I would say. You know, I don't think if they play the exact same way they played last year, to me, they are a 10-win team. Nothing wrong with that, but I think they're not going to get the same results with that level of play. Could they improve their level of play in year 2 at Dan Quinn? Of course.
Bill Barnwell, ESPN, joining us. So let's talk about how you see the roster. And by the way, you know, some significant differences to the roster from where it was last year.
Oh, yeah. Of course. And I mean, one of those, unfortunately, is we still don't know what's going to happen with Terry McLaurin. I think there's a lot of similarities to me between this team and the 2024 Houston Texans, where that team got better very quickly in that breakout year from their young quarterback because they had a lot of veteran players already on the roster. In Houston, Nick Caserio signed a lot of guys to one-year deals. They had a lot of players who would just plug and play. We're a solid pro. We're going to give you, we're going to give you 60 honest minutes. And those guys, surrounded by a couple of young superstars, were able to get better very quickly. With the Commanders, I think a very similar situation. One of the oldest teams in football last year and one of the healthiest teams in football last year, which is an interesting combination.
Sure.
Because of the Rivera era, because of the draft picks from the Rivera era, many of them are not around. Unfortunately, one of the best ones, Sam Cosmi, is dealing with his injury from the postseason. He's probably not going to be ready to start the year. This is an older roster than I think people realize. So there's not as many players you'd sit here and say, okay, we're expecting them to be a breakout candidate. You look at Mike Sanderstill, for example. That's a really good option. But this team's going to have veteran starters throughout the lineup, which there's nothing wrong with necessarily, but there's not those guys who are going to, you would expect to take major leaps forward versus how they played last year. And then look at this year with the draft. I mean, because they traded for Deebo Samuel, because they traded for Larry Tunsil, trades I have no issue with. It made sense. Trade for Marshawn Lattimore last year. They had 3 top 200 picks. So they're not getting a ton of young talent imported this year. Obviously, they're excited about Josh Connolly. They're excited about Trey Amos. They should be, but who knows if those guys are instant impact players when we actually get to Sundays during the regular season. So when we talk about how you're going to improve your underlying level of play, the easiest way to do that is to have a bunch of young players break through or have players who massively exceed expectations versus what we would expect, which was happened with the Eagles last year. There's just not that many players, in key roles in this organization where they are on the way up. For so many guys, it's either you're at your peak or you're on the way down. And so that to me is the tough part. It's not that I don't think the players are good. It's just, I think, outside of Daniels, outside of Sanderstill, outside of maybe a couple more guys, a lot of these guys are already either they were good last year and they're baked in, we're hoping they'll be the same play this year, or they're at the point of their careers where someone like a Zach Ertz, someone like a Bobby Wagner, it's more likely they decline versus more likely they improve.
You brought up the Houston example I think it's interesting because there's no doubt that it was a step back year statistically and in many other ways for CJ Stroud, but they did win 10 games and they won a playoff game in which he started off poorly and then played very well in the comeback over the Chargers. What is your answer to when people say to you, well, the league's going to figure Jayden Daniels out and he's going to have, that sophomore slump season?
Yeah, I don't buy that. I mean, you brought up the RG3 example, and obviously it's a totally different situation in so many ways.
Yes.
But the idea that, it's 11-on-11 football, the advantages Jayden Daniels provides in the run game are not going anywhere. That's not going to change. Again, I think they're going to be thoughtful and selective about when they want to incorporate him into the run game. But this is a phenomenal passer. It's not like this is a gimmicky quarterback. It's not like this is something that, teams aren't running. He was great as a drop back passer last year. He was great in terms of his timing. He was great against the blitz. He was great at adjusting stuff. I mean, he was a complete player. To the extent there might be a sophomore slump, there's randomness that pops up, of course. And C.J. Stroud had a crazy low interception rate his first year through no fault of his own, just because of the sheer reality of playing in the NFL. And I expected that to increase in year 2. And it did, but it doesn't make him a bad quarterback or there's a second year slump. It's just, you're only getting 500 pass attempts. There's going to be variance based on, you might have 8 balls a year that are interceptable. On a good year, they all fall to the ground. On a terrible year, 6 of them get picked off. On an average year, maybe 2 or 3 get picked off.
Right.
I think he just had an average year. So I don't see anything in Jayden Daniels' style of play, his performance, the underlying metrics. And if you think he is a fluke, the only thing that I would raise as a concern, and I don't think this is likely, and I don't predict injuries, but there's that possibility because he get hurt. That's the only thing that would make me be nervous about Jayden Daniels. But I don't see anything about his play that makes me think he's about to take a step backwards.
Do you have a view on the Terry McLaurin situation?
I'd like to think there's a middle ground that makes sense, right? Obviously, first in terms of the person, everything I've heard, Terry McLaurin is a very valued part of the organization. He obviously had to endure some very inconsistent, shall we say, quarterback play. It's shocking how many quarterbacks he's already played with throughout his career. I think everybody was rooting for him to get on a winner. He's on a winner now. I don't think he's going to have more success going elsewhere. So it makes sense for him to stay from that perspective. I mean, this is what the math comes down to for me. I think for Terry McLaurin as well. The Commanders see Mike Evans got $41 million over 2 years guaranteed, basically. Cortland Sutton got in the same ballpark, 41-42. Calvin Ridley, a little more, but those guys are all 30 or older when they sign their deals, which Terry McLaurin is going to be. DK Metcalf got 60 over 2 years because the Steelers traded for him. And I think if you're Terry McLaurin, you have every right to ask for more. I mean, you've been just as productive of a player with realistically worse quarterback play. But I think the Commanders are seeing those other comps as more meaningful. I'd like to think if that number can get to 52, 53, 54, I would hope that both sides would get a deal done. I think it's benefiting everyone involved. But I mean, I can see where Terry McLaurin is coming from. To me, I think this is a deal just for the purposes of, you have a quarterback on a bargain deal. If you're going to make a splurge, you're going to go a little beyond what your budget is for a position. I think wide receiver, and I think for this player, this person, it would make sense to me.
All right. Let's finish up with this. Your 2 lists. And first I wanted to ask you, did you put them in the order of confidence level for you in terms of the teams that you expected to improve and the teams that you expected to decline?
Decline?
Because they're not listed alphabetically.
Yes, I think. Yeah, improved was some years there's an obvious one. Last year, the Chargers were the most obvious improved candidate to me I could have thought of in years. And so I put them first because it was the obvious pick to me. This year, I would say improve is sort of more muddled. Decline, yes, because the Chiefs were the first 10-0 team in the history of the NFL, and they basically needed to perform a miracle every week to win against some bad football teams late in the year. So I think they're an obvious one. But after 1, I would say it's probably more kind of in the muddled side of things. I think the Lions are probably just as likely to decline as the Commanders are.
Right. And by the way, the decline being relative, like you said, you could see them winning 10 games this year, which is a decline by 2 regular season games. Is that what you're predicting, by the way, 10-7, something like that?
Yeah, that's the number I throw out there is 10-7. And again, I mean, we saw with the Browns last year, for example, they were an 11-win team. I probably would have said, okay, maybe 7-8 wins, but their quarterback is a nightmare and he gets hurt. They have a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Their defense is more inconsistent than I would have expected. They drop all the way to 3 wins. So there is a pretty big variance here. But I think, try to put a number out there. 10 is the number for me.
All right. I was actually more interested in, I want to finish with this, because your first team on the list of teams most likely to improve is the team that I've been thinking about all off season as well. So are the Giants for you the team that you feel most confident in terms of improving because they were listed first?
Yeah, I mean, again, I
they
think
were 3 and
relative to
14. I mean, what kind of
decline
improvement?
sites,
But do you see them as a potential playoff
Right.
team?
Oh gosh, I think they have to get the quarterback situation right, and I think that's, you don't need an expert to come on and say that. I don't know that I'm an expert, but I mean, if Jackson Dart he's not going to be Jayden Daniels, but if he could be Bo Nix from last year, that's the path for me. If they can get a Bo Nix level performance from Jackson Dart early on in the year, I think they can pull this off. The concern is the schedule, right? I mean, it's the toughest schedule in football by ESPN's metrics, but this team had a legitimately great pass rush the first half of the year. They have a great receiver. I still believe in Brian Dable. I think he's somehow gotten up as a bad coach because he, managed to coax a playoff performance out of Daniel Jones. It feels like he's almost being punished for doing a really good job his first year. I still think there's a good team there, and I think they're going to be a lot better in the red zone. They were really unlucky there, really unlucky in one-score games. I would think they fall just short because of the schedule, but if they're massively improved and they get lucky, that could be a playoff team for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pesky week in and week out for good teams.
Yes.
They're good defensively. Yes. Last team I want to ask you about, if the 49ers with their star players stay healthy, can they win the Super Bowl?
Yes, they can. And the guy for me that nobody is talking about, and I'm not really sure why, is Robert Saleh. Because that is a coach who, for whatever faults he had as a head coach in New York, he developed a ton of young players and a ton of waiver wire guys in San Francisco and in New York to being real successful contributors very quickly. And that's what the Niners have to do. Now that you've paid Brock Purdy, you have to find rookie contract deal guys and waiver wire guys, get more out of less. And they have a guy who can do that. Saleh to me is such a difference maker on defense. I think that was outside of Ben Johnson, I think that was one of the 2 or 3 biggest coaching hires of the entire offseason was getting Saleh as the DC there. That's a major upgrade for them. They're going to be healthier, and they're going from the hardest schedule in football to the easiest. To me, that is going to be a playoff team that has actual Super Bowl upside if they can stay healthy.
All right, I lied. I got one more. If Stafford's healthy, do you consider the Rams to be a Super Bowl contender?
Ooh, I don't know. I want to. To me, I think Jared Verse is my I was going on a podcast and I was going to say Jared Verse is my pick for Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow.
And I felt really smart. And then my colleague, Robert Mays, I asked him before I even said it, and he said Jared Verse is my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. And I was furious because he beat me to it. But then I was like, maybe this isn't quite as, unlikely of an opinion. He was so good last year in that game against the Eagles and so good down the stretch for the Rams. That is a really promising young defense. They have questions about their health on offense. I think if they can keep everyone healthy, not just Stafford, but Albert Jackson, the left tackle, has to stay healthy. He's doing his blood clots. Puka Nacua, I mean, they're a different offense with him on the field. I do think they have that upside, but I think it's more than just Stafford. I think it has to be all their key pieces on offense because I do think they're going to suffer if they can't protect Stafford, and they've had trouble doing that at times in the past.
It's interesting. Jared Verse, to me, that is definitely a reach pick. I mean, he was so good as a rookie, as you said, but with the likes even in the conference of guys like Jalen Carter and Micah Parsons, and then, you flip it to Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, et cetera. That he's a hell of a player, though. It's coming. That is for sure. Thank you. As always, I always enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, I just wish I had more optimistic things to say. I feel like last year we were always on the optimistic side about the Commanders. This is still a good football team. And if they do get off to that 5-0 start, please let's talk again. I will happily apologize to the DMV.
Well, you didn't. You said a decline. They won 12 games last year. That and it's so fair to look at. Week 2, no kicker, Graham Gano. They got to go for 4th downs. They got to go for 2. Devontae Smith dropped a 3rd and 5 from Pickett right in his hands with nobody around that would have ended the Eagle game in December. New Orleans had a shot, but also we missed an extra point against Dallas on that 80-yarder to Terry. There was maybe a questionable spot in the Pittsburgh game that would have put him in field goal range at the end. You know how these things go, but and not to mention the Hail Mary. There was a lot of good juju last year for this team, no doubt.
Deservedly so.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it as always.
Of course.
Bill Barnwell, everybody, at Bill Barnwell on X on Twitter. Who do you like this year? We're going to move away from our team and we're going to talk some NFL here. Who is your surprise pick to be a much better team than they were last year? This has to be, by the way, a non-playoff team that you're predicting will be a playoff team, and flipping it around, a playoff team that you think declines and doesn't make the playoffs. In your conversations, you've got a team in mind that you think is much better than most people think, and you've got a team in mind that is much worse than people think. I want to hear both of those teams at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Again, I want to make it clear. It's got to be playoff team that isn't in the playoffs and then non-playoff team that makes the playoffs. All of our NFL conversation here on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and on Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started. We're talking NFL now. What's the team, name the team that you've been thinking wasn't a playoff team last year, but will be a playoff team this year? And then on the flip side, the team that made the postseason last year that you think doesn't make the postseason this year. There's a team that I really want to go out on a limb, and I think when we get to our NFL prediction segment, the first week of September, leading into the first NFL weekend of the year, I'm going to predict a lot more wins than their over/under total for the upcoming season. By the way, phone lines are open, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your surprise pick for a team to be drastically improved going from no playoffs to playoffs, and your pick that has a team dropping from playoff from last year, positioning to out of it this year. I really want to say the Giants. I think I've said this, I know I've been wrong on them so many times. They just have a good roster. They have had terrible quarterback play, and quarterback play means everything. And Russell Wilson, the latest in recent, iteration of Russell Wilson's not overly impressive. And I'm not a big Jackson Dart guy. I know that people are raving about him. I want to see it in the regular season. I thought he threw a lot of balls to the other team often. But the Giants roster is legit, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they have star players. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best. Clearly, we've got to see Abdul Carter as a rookie. The talent is there. And then, guys like Burns and Okereke, I love their linebackers. McFadden, just players. It's hard to even mention Thibodeau, but he's still a talent. They added Holland from Miami to their defensive backfield. They're good defensively. And offensively, they've got an absolute elite level talent at wide receiver. Elite level. We saw it in week 2 last year, how good Malik Neighbors is going to be. I mean, with no quarterback play, he caught 109 balls last year with, by the way, missed 2 games. In 15 games, 109 receptions for 1,204 yards and 7 touchdowns without a quarterback. I mean, who were the Giants' quarterbacks last year? Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock. Hold on. Was Drew Lock on the Giants last year? Didn't we face Drew Lock in one of the games? No, Daniel Jones twice. Jones, Lock, DeVito, Tim Boyle all played quarterback, and Neighbors had 109 catches for 1,204 yards. I mean, legit elite level talent. But that's not my pick because there's an easier one. It's the 49ers. The 49ers were 6-11 last year because they were a banged up football team. Totally agree with Bill Barnwell on Robert Saleh's return and what he will mean. They have so many superstar players. Yes, some of them are getting older and some of them can't stay healthy, including the guy they dealt, Deebo Samuel. But if Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk comes back, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Jair Brown, Lenore in the secondary. They lost what's his face from last year.
Ward.
Ward and the safety.
Oh, Tanaloa
Hufanga. Losing Tufunga was big for them. But they still have, I just listed 5 legitimate A-level players. Well-coached, easiest schedule on paper, if that means anything. The 49ers are my pick for the team that didn't make the postseason last year to make the postseason this year. It's kind of like Barnwell doing what he did with the Chargers, because of injuries the year before. So that's my pick for elevation into the postseason from not postseason. My pick for a team to drop out of the postseason, and I think this will be a big drop. I love Kevin O'Connell. I think Brian Flores is an excellent defensive coordinator. I think the Vikings have talent. I'm just not a big J.J. McCarthy guy. I may turn around on him. I haven't seen him play an NFL game that matters. He was hurt all last year. I think there's a chance he could be Sam Darnold, but Darnold really had limitations that just caught up with them, late in the year. I could see Minnesota easily going from a 14-win team to an 8 or a 9-win team and missing the postseason. Those are my two selections. Max, what are yours? And phone lines are open for your team that's going to be up and overachieve and your team that's going to be down and underachieve. Go ahead.
So the team that I like to kind of take a step forward this year is one that people have kind of been picking across league circles. It's the New England Patriots. I really like. It was tough last year with Gerard Mayo and all them. Like they said they saw him as the future, and that was quickly turned around. But Vrabes, man, he is a war dog. Like he'll go to battle for anyone and everything. I think he's got that locker room in tip-top shape. I really like what they did in the draft. I think Travion Henderson is going to have a really, really strong year. I think they're going to be running back by committee a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But I really like the addition of Will Campbell. I think Drake May will take a step forward. So the New England Patriots are going to be my team that takes a step forward. And then my team that takes a step back.
By the way, 3-14 to the postseason.
Yeah.
That's it. Like Diana was on with us last week, was it? And she likes New England to take the big jump, but you're talking about probably a 6 to 7 game improvement, to make the postseason. I'm not against you. I'm a massive Vrabel fan, but go ahead.
Yeah, so that's kind of the team that I think is going to take a step forward. And I think this is a lot of it's hinging on how Drake May kind of looks going forward. But I'm pretty confident in Mike Vrabel and what he's proven to be able to do. The team that steps back is coming out of the NFC West, and it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams. This entire kind of preseason, and especially the past few weeks, a lot of stuff has been made about Matthew Stafford's health and a lot of the chamber or whatever, the glass table that they put him on with like magnets and stuff that is supposed to make him feel good with the red light and all that. We're doing the junk science bit. I'm out. I can't do it. If Stetson Bennett comes in there and looks great, credit to him.
Is he the backup?
I know he's on the roster. I thought
Garoppolo.
Jimmy. Yeah, you're right. Jimmy G is the backup. Stetson Bennett's the third string. But Devontae Adams, noted Jimmy G hater. So we'll see how that goes in LA. So yeah, the Rams are going to be my team that I think kind of falls off. But it all hinges on the health of Matthew Stafford going forward.
I like the Rams roster. I think Nakua is elite. I think clearly adding Devontae Adams to go with Nakua, health is everything. Remember, when they started slowly last year, they were decimated with injuries. Stafford, to me, is what this is all about. If Matt Stafford is upright and plays the majority of games, I see them winning double-digit games.
Sure.
I think defensively, Jared Verse is an absolute star, as is, by the way, Braden Fisk. They've got really good players defensively, and we know how well coached they are with Sean. So if the quarterback's out, it's a 6-11 season, or maybe 7-10 with Jimmy G. If the quarterback's healthy, I could easily see them being a 1 seed, or certainly like a 2 or a 3 seed in the NFC playoffs. The Rams are your pick to take a step back. Vikings for me. Patriots is your pick to take the step up from non-playoffs to playoffs. The 49ers are for me, but man, I think the Giants have a chance to be a real big surprise this year. All right, if you're on hold, Vincent, Andy, Robert, I see you. We've got a line open as well if you want to weigh in, 301-230-0980. Who's that team you've been talking about is going to make a big jump and surprise people, go from non-playoffs to playoffs? And what about the flip side to that, the team that takes a major step back? Your call's next.
All right, here's what's happening on this Wednesday, August 20th. Mike Garafolo has said that there is certainly interest in Brian Robinson Jr. from other teams. The big question they're asking is why he fell out of favor with the Commanders, and they're weighing the options if it's going to be better for the teams if they wait for a release or if it's better to just do a trade. Dan Quinn said at his post-game presser on Monday that he is certainly someone we respect a lot, end quote. And according to multiple reports across the NFL, Many teams are calling around the league looking to acquire a veteran wide receiver. Teams interested include the Minnesota Vikings, the San Francisco 49ers, New York Jets, and New England Patriots. Plus, the Washington Nationals are bringing up number 1 overall pick Eli Willits to High A Fredericksburg and could make his debut as soon as tomorrow. Speaking of the Nats, they fall to the Mets by a score of 8-1. The woes continue for Jake Irvin as he gives up 5 runs in the 3rd inning and 1 more in the 6th for good measure. David Peterson with a strong outing for the Mets as he goes 8 innings, giving up only 1 run. They will continue their series versus the Mets tonight. Brad Lord on the mound versus Kodai Senga. First pitch at 6:45 for the Nats. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15 on the Fan. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
All right, phone lines open at 301-230-0980. 2.5 weeks away from opening day. Actually, tomorrow night will be 2 weeks from the opener. Philly and Dallas, Thursday night football. What team do you think is going to take that big jump? By the way, it'll be multiple teams. It always is. From no playoffs last year to the playoffs this year. You're convinced of it. You want to tell everybody about it. I'm giving you that chance. And on the other side of that, what's that team that was in the postseason last year that you think is going to take a big step back and not make it? For me, I think the easy pick in the league really is to look at the 49ers talent and see that last year was 100% about the injury bug. Could happen again, but if they stay healthy, they certainly should be a team that wins more games then they lose. So I picked them, even though I wanted to pick the Giants. But I think the 49ers are a safer bet on that front. And the step back is the Vikings from 14-3 to out of the postseason this year. That may be a little bit tricky because it's possible that J.J. McCarthy may not be what I think he's going to be, which is, not great. I was not a big McCarthy believer coming into the league. We'll see. But he could be, every bit of what Sam Darnold was. Darnold was a bit of a fortunate quarterback last year, even when things were going well. And then you saw it, really decline towards the end of the year. He just doesn't see it quickly enough. But they won 14 games because they have a good roster. They have a great coaching staff. But the Vikings are my pick for the step back out of the postseason. There's another team that was in the postseason last year that I actually just think will be a much better playoff team this year. But that's not the question, but I'll share that with you after we get through some of these calls. All right, 301-230-0980. Let's start with Vincent. Vincent, go ahead. The team that's going to make it that wasn't there last year, the team that's going to miss it that was.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Good,
great
Vincent.
show, man. You're the show I go to. You're my go-to show.
Appreciate it,
look here, I got Atlanta on the upside. They played us pretty tough, Commanders, last year, and I just like what I see in a young quarterback, and I think second year with the coach, I think that team is on the upcoming.
I like Penix Jr. too. He was my third favorite of the quarterbacks.
Yes.
Jayden,
I think
Caleb, and Penix Jr. Yeah,
right, with a full, regular preseason with him, so he should be much improved.
They have a really underrated roster. First of all, their running game should be good. Their offensive line's good. They've got a high level receiver in Drake London and a very underrated one in Darnell Mooney. Defensively is where their issues were last year until late in the season. By the way, I'm a big fan of Penix Jr., but if for whatever reason he can't do it, they've got the best backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yes,
you
they
know
do.
who?
Yes, they do.
You know who that is.
Yes, I know who that is. Yep. my down team, Kevin, because I'm such a homer, I can't say Commanders.
Okay.
Just a lot of things went their way last year that they may not get those breaks this year. So I'm not going to say Commanders. I'm going to go with the Rams. That quarterback, that back issue, back is a funny thing, man. And that's just, and we know this is a quarterback-driven league. If he's not there, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either. Look, it'd be interesting to see how coached up Jimmy G would be with Sean, because they got receivers, man. They got a running back. They got talent. Jimmy G is certainly quarterbacked well-coached teams, same scheme, Sean's scheme, Kyle's scheme. Like if Matt Stafford couldn't go, it would be interesting to see what they would be with Jimmy G. But yeah, I would predict a drop-off with them as well. Thanks, Vincent. Andy, Robert, Aiden, we got a phone line open if you want to weigh in. I'll get to your calls next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980. We're on the team980.com where you can listen to us whenever you want, wherever you are. And don't forget, you can watch us on our Team 980 YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. The team you think is going to take a major step forward from where they were last year, a non-playoff team becoming a playoff team, and the opposite of that, the team that was in the postseason last year that you think declines and is not in the postseason. We had Bill Barnwell on the show last hour. Bill's always great. He did two different stories and gave the teams that he thought had the best chances of improving and the chances of declining. Now that it wasn't playoff to, non-playoff to playoff season or playoff season to non-playoff season. He had the Giants listed number 1 in terms of the team that he expects to improve significantly. They were 3-14, so they could improve significantly and not make the postseason. I want to hear the team that you've got and that you might even place a futures bet on that is not expected to be good, that you are convinced will be good and will end up in the postseason. And then the opposite of that, the team that most are thinking will be good, that you don't think will be good. For me, the 49ers are the easy pick. They were 6-11 last year, all because of injury. If they're healthy, they certainly should win more games than they lose and be in the postseason. I was I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to play the Giants over. And I better play it soon because there seems to be some momentum building on the Giants over 6.5 wins this year. I've lost on them in some of these futures bets in recent years. And then I think Minnesota's the team that was in the playoffs last year that goes backwards. For Max, New England's his surprise team. And then your team going backwards is the Rams, 301-230. 0980. There's one team I'm expecting to hear a bunch of, especially in this town. I'm not talking about our team. I'm talking about the other team that, is a favorite in a lot of cities. Let's go to Andy in Kent Island. Andy, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for taking my call. I never get to call because I'm always at work, but I do listen to your podcast all the time. Appreciate it. The team that I have, of course, thank you. The team that I have making it this year that did not last year is the Chicago Bears. 3 reasons. I think the acquisition of Swift and actually Zacchaeus is going to be very helpful, and especially their new head coach, I think, is going to bring a different dynamic to that organization and his play calling. The team that I don't think is going to make it might be a surprise, and I kind of hope you're wrong with your Vikings pick, but I think it's going to be the Green Bay Packers. The reason being is that their schedule last year, if you recognize, they played so many bottom dwellers of their actual conferences that I felt like their record didn't truly indicate what their talent base is. Yes, Love is a great quarterback, don't get me wrong, but I just think that they're not going to have it in their cards this year. Thanks for taking my call. Have a great day.
Yeah, the Green Bay thing is interesting. Matt LaFleur has been a very successful head coach and is very highly respected among coaches in the league. I forget, what their season was last year, and I'm pulling it up right now. They lost some cliffhangers, man. Their losses were by 5 points to Philly and Brazil, 2 points, a game they led most of the way against Minnesota. They lost by 10 at home against Detroit. They got dominated in that game. They lost by 3 at Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. No, that wasn't Thanksgiving. That was a week after Thanksgiving. Lost by 2 at Minnesota, 2 against Chicago. Wow. I mean, the average loss was basically, if you take the 10-point, the one double-digit loss out of there, their average loss was by 2.8 points per game. They also won a lot of close games. That tends to be the league. I don't know, man. I thought that they had a really good season, and I didn't think Love played anywhere near his capability. Let's go to Robert in Annapolis. Robert, go ahead.
All right, Kevin, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm actually looking at the NFC East, and I'm leaning where you are with the Giants. Either the Giants or the Cowboys are going to replace the Commanders as a wild card team out of that division.
So you have Washington out.
I got Washington out. Both of those teams, put aside their head coaching question marks and the quarterback, they got playmakers on both sides of the ball. Both the Cowboys and the Giants do.
I agree.
Other than Jayden Daniels, I don't see any elite playmakers on your roster.
Yeah.
They get some good players, but I don't see anyone
other than John Wilkes Booth.
really...
How was the play, Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln? I mean, when you say other than Jayden Daniels, like, try to say that about your team. Other than Lamar Jackson or other than Patrick Mahomes would be a better example in recent years. I mean, come on. They have elite level at the most important position that is the number one predictor other than health about an NFL season.
Well, I really like Jayden Daniels. I haven't elevated him to the position that you have.
I know you have.
But he needs support, just as my guy does, and he does have support. Derrick Henry is a good support. Andrews, good support at tight end. Zay Flowers. They got playmakers and Roquan Smith on defense. They got a superior defensive backfield this year. They got a lot of other things going.
Who did they add? Did they add Jair? They added Alexander, right?
Yes, Jair
Jair Alexander.
But anyhow, they just have a lot of talent spread around.
Yeah, they do. They always do.
I'm not trying to be critical of your team. I'm being objective. Yeah. That they have a lot of somewhat aging guys as plug-ins for a year or two. Frankie's a good player, but you got some question marks in that defensive backfield. You just got a lot of question marks. And I just think the Giants and the Cowboys are more talented, I guess is what I'm saying. Now,
I think that their rosters may be overall slightly better. But, Robert, I can't be objective, but I can try my best to be. I don't think as I look around the league that I would ever pick a team with what I viewed as an elite level quarterback to decline unless that team won 15 or 16 games and I was just picking them to win 11. Like that's my issue. I don't think I've ever looked at a team that had one of the top quarterbacks in the game and said, yeah, that's the team that's not going to make the postseason this year after making it last year. It would be hard for me to do that, so I'm not going to do it with my own team.
All right. I put a fin on the Commanders under 9.5. Where's Kevin putting his money on that line?
I'll have my over. I've already made one wager, and it's the team I'm going to mention here shortly, but they were a playoff team last year, but I have a feeling they're going to be much better. And by the way, that team's in your division. Thanks.
By
Robert.
the way, I always bet the Ravens under as sort of a sweetheart bet, so I get something out of it.
It's called the happiness hedge. Yeah.
The happiness hedge. That's what it is.
We call that the happiness hedge in the business, where you're okay to lose if if the team that you bet against is your favorite team and they end up winning the game. I've done that with Washington, as you know, with the smell test. Many Fridays coming in here and giving out the opposite team. The best is when you give out the opposite team plus points and they cover, but your team also wins. That is.
By the way, on your smell test, why don't you just go? Betting everywhere now. Instead of saying win units or loss, just how many you've been betting.
You want me to tell everybody how much I bet on a game?
No. No. Just on your smell test, a hypothetical 100 for a win, 110 for a loss. But you've also been. Why do you recommend buying half points? That's a come on by the sports books. If it wasn't a winner,
not on key numbers. Not on key numbers. Major money saver over time. On 2.5s, 3.5s, 6.5s, 7.5s.
I understand the theory, but they wouldn't offer it. They wouldn't offer. And that's a minus 120 on those losses.
It's not always minus 120. I've paid many times less than minus 120 on a half point, but it usually is. It usually is.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well,
Robert.
I'm going to keep a calculation on you this year.
Well, I keep the calculation. It's all, basically what you have to do if you consider a straight bet on every single game is you got to hit it 52.6%. And I think I've done that 14 out of 18 years.
Not if you're buying half points on games and you're losing them, though.
The half point buy, first of all, I would guarantee you I've ended up either pushing or winning more games than losing. Secondly, you're talking about maybe 0.5% of all the games I've given out. Not even 0.5%.
All right.
But if you want to go do that math and shave it down to, or shave it up to 52.9% that I needed to hit, it would still be. All right. 14 out of 18. Thanks.
When do you start that? Are you starting that
this Friday?
weekend?
But I can tell you, I've already looked at the board for Saturday, and there isn't anything that I really like. So more likely than not, the first one will be a week from Friday, or a week from Thursday when we go into Thursday night college games. All right, I got to run. Thanks, Robert. Giants up, Washington down. Or he actually said Giants or Cowboys up, Washington down. Aiden from Hagerstown. Aiden, go ahead. Give me the NFL team that you're predicting to have a surprise season from non-playoffs last year to playoffs this year, and the team that made the playoffs last year that won't make it this year. Go ahead, Aiden.
Hey, Kevin, you got me?
I got you, Aiden.
Team I think didn't make it that is going to make it. I'm on the Patriots. They didn't start Drake May till I think week 6 last year. Took him a while to get his feet under him, but when he – what was that?
Is that how long it took? I thought it was earlier than that. Yeah, I'm not. That's it. Yeah.
I checked, and it said week 6.
Okay.
Took him a while to get his feet under him, but when he did, I really liked how he played. I think if they start him from week 1, he gets going a little earlier, and maybe they find 5 or 6 games instead of 3. I look for him, especially with Vabril in the room now, to really take a step forward.
Sure.
And then, lifelong Washington fan here, I hate to be this guy, but I'm thinking Washington doesn't make it, and so it's a little interesting. I think the offense is actually going to take a step forward, not a big step, but I think they're going to be even a little better. But just a few names to throw out: an older Russell Wilson, Cooper Rush, Caleb Williams, who didn't look good, Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
those are the quarterbacks we were playing last year.
We know the list.
The defense could barely find a way to even kind of hold on so Jayden could drag him to the end.
Yep.
We're not playing that list quarterback.
By the way, it's Trey Lance.
So you're
also Jake Hayner.
We're gonna go from asking Jayden to drag the defense to a win, needing to score 28 or 30, to some of these top level quarterbacks are going to could potentially throw 35 or 40 on our defense and not really try that hard, it seems like. And if that happens, asking Jayden to overcome that, I think there's games he will absolutely do it. He'll pull some magic tricks out. Asking him to do it for an entire season is crazy to ask of anybody, let alone a second-year guy. I don't see a way the defense could have stepped forward that much that when they play these next-level quarterbacks to be able to even help try and win some of these games.
Aiden, good call. You actually made me think about something as it relates to Jayden and the possibility of kind of a small step back season for the team that I am going to address when we come back from break. If you're on hold, Athen, Stan, Paulie, Joe, we've got a line open if you want to weigh in. The team you think takes a big step forward from non-playoff season to playoff season, and the team that takes the big step backwards from playoff season to non-playoff season. 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. on Wall a little bit more towards the end of this show, and whether or not he should have his jersey retired by Ted in the organization. Right now, a few more calls from you guys who have been on hold, and I appreciate it. Who's that team this year that you are predicting will surprise, go from non-playoff season to playoff season? And which team are you predicting goes the opposite way, from a playoff year to a non-playoff year? All of our NFL discussion on the Team 980 is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. My team that makes it this year that didn't, the 49ers, the team that I'm predicting to take a step back, the Vikings, and Max has the Patriots making it and the Rams not making it. Something real quickly that the last caller, I think it was Aiden, mentioned that just gave me a thought. Like, I think what we learned last year with the Tampa playoff game, with the Detroit playoff game, with even the Atlanta and Philadelphia late season games, is just get in. You know, it would be best for Super Bowl prospects to be the 1 seed and get to host every playoff game in Landover. But with this guy, if you are 9-8, 10-7, and you just sneak in, the other team's not going to want to see us. I mean, you know, we'll know what the context is in the moment, but quarterback-wise, just get in. Stan, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, how you doing? Hope you had a good summer. It's been a while.
Hey, what's up, Stan? How are you? Good to hear your voice.
So I'm thinking it must be pretty slow over there if we're going to continue with the segment. If you really want to hear my good and bad, I do
want to hear your good and bad, but I'm sure you've got something else that you want to talk about.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
Absolutely, I always do. I agree with you. The Vikings and the Niners; those are the 2 easy picks. If you really want to get crazy, I think Philadelphia is going to go 15-2, and or 16-1, and we're just got to be happy that these are not best of 7 series in the playoffs. And like you said, it's a one and done, and we have a chance to just get in. Secondly, up here around Giant Country, this kid Abdul Carter is absolutely devastating every single person in his path. The writers can't get enough of him. Nobody can get enough of this guy. He cannot be blocked. I don't know how good the Giant or Jet lines are, but he can't be blocked. He was not blocking anything so far this year up here.
There was a chip. I saw a video go viral where he got chipped pretty hard and unexpectedly.
He just runs around the tackles. It's too easy. I don't know. It reminds me of what Chase Young should have been, or what was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared of our back situation. I know you guys all love them. I think these two guys. I think they're slow. I think Rodriguez might have good vision. He's slow. Merritt, I don't know. He's supposed to be quicker. I just don't see it. Believe it or not, like just somebody as stupid or so small as. Remember what Boston Scott used to be for the Eagles?
Yeah.
He was just so quick to the holes.
Even Gainwell. I just feel like
even Gainwell, you need somebody like that, and I still don't even see that of any of these backs. Like I just think they're all. He's old though, and he's going to get hurt or he's going to get the concussion. Yeah. So I don't even want to count him. But I just want somebody quicker, like obviously like Bijan, Saquon, or Jameer.
Well,
obviously I'm not going there. I'm saying somebody like a Gainwell or a Boston Scott, like something as basic as that. I think those guys would thrive with Jayden Daniels.
I think Krosky Merritt's got some burst to him.
I hope he does. I mean that first carry of the game the other day or whatever, it was blocked perfectly. He read the blocks perfectly. He didn't get touched. The rest of the game, I wasn't impressed with anything I saw. That's why I'm just like, I don't know. I don't see what you guys do down there every day and what they're talking about.
Look, I'm not raving about the running back room either. I mean, I've liked Rodriguez and his ability as a power back between the tackles, decent vision, decent feet. By the way, if you go back and look at some of the Kentucky stuff, he certainly had some, explosive ability. We saw that on a 40-yard run, but Trust me, you know me. I'm not watching, practices or preseason games and labeling any of these guys as the next Emmitt Smith.
No, I agree. I think he could have some power, just like Robinson had some power when he hit the hole. I just think they hit the hole so slow. I don't think these guys are just like game-changing.
Krosky Merritt looks different to me. I think I disagree with you on that, just based on the college tape. I think he's got good quick feet, good vision, and good burst.
Okay, I haven't seen enough of him, so I hope you're right. Just give me somebody like a Gainwell.
Look, the O-line has a role in this too, and it could be a lot better this year.
That's true too. I agree, and I think they will be. One thing I want to be ahead of everyone here, and this is going to be a problem for the NFL. I can't be the only one that sees this on these games when they do the TV. Now, when they come out to measure, they're not measuring anymore, correct? Like, you're not seeing the officials measure on the field.
Well, not during preseason, right? This is what's going on.
Okay,
in
all right. That's what I want. I don't know how. Okay, that's what I don't know how this works. But if
you're
they're
talking about the electronic, exactly
right, Ken. I'm talking about when they just put 2 feet 3 inches. There is no, there's no. What's the word I'm looking for? Magic, like you don't get any anxiousness.
It has nothing to do with the placement of the ball. That they're not using this, technology, the Hawkeye technology, to measure the ball. Wherever it's or to spot the ball, wherever the ball's spotted, that's it. It's used as a measurement tool.
No, that's what I'm saying. So Kevin, when they've done this on the preseason, it just it comes up on the screen and it'll just say 2 feet 3 inches, and that does nothing for me as a viewer.
2 feet. As a fan, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not watched any preseason with the exception of our games, and I think I saw it in the Patriots game. It was used once. Was it used the other night?
Yeah, I saw it twice. I've only seen the first
half. Was it the second half when I was kind of paying attention?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, again, I'm not paying attention too much. I think you, believe it or not, I think you need these officials, as dumb as it sounds, to run out on the field and still pull the chain. Now, I want them to use the technology.
What is it that's bothering you, though? I'm missing this.
Well, when you just go on a TV and they go, okay, we're going to now go to and see if he's sure or if he's got it. All it does is it just pops up on the screen. It just says the ball will be there with a line. It'll be like, oh, he's short by 2 feet. And there's no anticipation or no there's nothing to it. It's just like, oh, you won, you lost. Like a scratch.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it is more efficient than bringing the chains out, even though the anticipation of the chains may create, more unpredictability and excitement and buildup.
Okay,
so
then
you missed the buildup.
Yes, or what you need to do is, on Madden when they do a kickoff or something that's stupid. I haven't played these games in years, but when on a kickoff the guy's leg and the power thing goes through, and it's like you got to get it at the top and then get it at the bottom, or however that works on kickoff. You need the screen to fill in the yellow line going, and then short, just so you have the anticipation on the technology part of it.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's see how it plays out, if it plays out at all during the regular season. I think this is just a preseason thing. I could be wrong. I forget how they're going. Maybe they're going to make the decision to implement it if it works. I don't know, but I need more exposure to it to have an opinion on it. So your teams are my teams. Little bit concerned about the running back room. Let's talk, once the season starts, Stan. I love having you on and love your conversations. I'm sure we'll get into, some sort of rule thing that we have figured out that no one else has figured out. We'll have a loophole or two to discuss. Thanks.
We still do. All right. I'll talk to you, Kevin.
Athen, go ahead.
Well, I got to say that the Cowboys are going to make a lot of positive noise this year for their fans. I think they're due. I think they have a ton of talent. They were, up until they played us last year, they were like one of the worst teams in the league. And I think the Micah Parsons, regardless of contract or whatever, is going to go crazy. I see Dallas in the NFC Championship game.
Who do they have on defense, seriously, up front, other than Parsons? Who's going to stop the run for them?
I heard that they got bigger in the offseason. I can't give you any names.
Ezraku's not a run stopper, Max. He's a pass rusher.
That is true.
The rookie.
So I just think they got a ton of talent on all. They added Pickens, and even though that guy's a head case, he's got hands like claws. So you had put him with Lamb and some of the other guys they got. I just see them having a really good year. And then as far as regression, I see it being the Redskins. I mean, we don't have speed. We have zero depth at linebacker on a scale of 1 to 10. It's like a -2 in my opinion. We have questionable depth at receiver. We didn't have injuries last year, and we had a soft schedule. This year we got a really tough schedule. And I think the thing that a lot of people don't take into account is we are still recovering from the bankruptcy of talent that Ron Rivera left this team in. It's just still taking time to fill holes and replace talent. So I have us at 9-8 and just missing the playoffs. And real quick, Kevin, because you know so much you love about gambling, and I do too. Max knows me personally, but I think it would be awesome if right before the season each year you do like a meetup with you somewhere, like we rent out a theater or something, and you have like your picks for the year and talk about gambling and like, you know, why you buy the half point and things that you like for the year, and even tie like college football or something into it. I think you would sell out the theater wherever we would go, and, you know, people buy drinks and all that stuff, and it would be a good time. Maybe
just
even Max
a degenerate fest. Yeah,
exactly.
I think we should do it at the MGM. Forget the theater. We should just go and we can see if they've got, you know, a rollers room for us, and we can just go in there and we can do it while we're playing cards and dice. That would be fun.
Well, there you go. I mean, like Doc says, you have your own private planes and everything. I know you got the connections to get the room there.
Yeah.
So it would be awesome, though. Think about it maybe for the future.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Athen. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
L to the W, man. What's going on, big guy? How you doing, man? Hey, listen, man. I got the Rams. First, let me say this, man. You call me uncoachable. This whole segment been uncoachable, bro.
I let you do these things sometimes. It's got to be good, though. It's got to be good. It can't be, you know, some tangent that isn't making sense to anybody.
Hey, I got to get a high five to the callers today, man. Way to be uncoachable, man. I love y'all guys, man. Hey, look, I got the Rams taking a step back, man. This whole Matthew Stafford thing. If Jayden is important to us, Matthew Stafford is just important to the Rams, and I have no faith in Jimmy G. You know, so I got the Rams on that step back.
What if? Hold on for 1 second. Because I just kind of talked myself into it a little bit, you know, when I was being uncoachable during this segment. What if Jimmy G, who, by the way, has played pretty well in some big moments during his career, he is in the exact same system with Sean, very comfortable in the system that they are in. The same level almost of talent around him that he had in San Francisco, the same level of coaching that he had in San Francisco. What if it were Jimmy G for 17 because Stafford can't go? Do you think they'd be terrible?
They wouldn't be terrible, no, but they'd definitely be on the outside. They'll be fighting to get in from the outside.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think they'd be terrible. He should have gone out and gotten Kirk.
I was ready to say he's a poor man's version of Kirk. Poor man Kirk is Jimmy G, man. You know what I mean? So I think they'll be fighting and trying to get in, and I don't think they'll make it. I think Arizona was going to leapfrog them in that division. You know what I mean? But my team, my come-up team is the Jets, man. The Jets.
Wow. Okay.
I like Aaron Glenn as a coach. He's a defensive guy. They still got defensive talent. Robert Saleh, you know, was too busy kissing Aaron Rodgers' ass for a year and a half. That's what got him fired. You know, they got Justin Fields at quarterback. They're not going to ask him to play outside of his means. They got Breece Hall as a running back. They got
coming off injury, right?
They got Wilson at wide receiver. I mean, I think the Jets got a good formula to make. I mean, the division is not tough. You know, the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are treading water. You know, of course, Buffalo is the cream of the crop. But I like the Jets, man. I think the Jets is going to make some waves. And they might not make the playoffs, but I can see them on the cusp of it. And if things all else fails with Justin Wilson, they still got Tyrod Taylor as a backup. And Tyrod is a pro. You know?
The back that I'm interested in this year, I think Breece Hall's good, but he's coming off injury. Wasn't he injured last year, or am I thinking 2 years ago? But the Wisconsin kid, Braylon Allen, the big, 6'2", 245 dude who can run. He has looked like a star to me in the making. If you're right and they're better as a team, I bet you Braylon Allen has a big year.
But my whole point is I think Aaron Glenn's an old school guy, and I think they're going to base that team around the running game and not trying to swing it with Justin Fields. Let's face it, Justin Fields is a poor man's version of Lamar Jackson.
Well, he's going to be a part of the running game, no doubt.
Right. So that's my team, man. And as far as us, man, I'm tired of hearing all this loser talk. Talking about last year's schedule and last year's – this is this year, man. Man, listen, man, we're primed and ready to go, man. We got 5 back there. Did y'all not see that game Monday night? Hey, did you not feel did you not
one
feel
play was a pretty good reminder.
But did you not feel the electricity, man? This guy has got the whole city behind his back, man. And that team believes in this dude, man. The defense is going to be better. You know what I mean? Y'all talking about the schedule we play. Them teams got to play us.
I agree. I'm with you. Let me just tell you, last year I was at 10-7. I'm going to be much better than that this year. I think they're going to have a big year.
13-4. I'm calling it right now 13-4, man. 13-4, first place in the division, man. Who y'all talking about, man? All this loser talk going on. Well,
you do this all the time. You're the master of straw man. We had 2 people call in and pick the Commanders to be down.
We didn't even play any quarterbacks last. Man, get out of here with that, man. They got to play our quarterback.
It's true.
I mean, but that's we played who was in front of us. Hey, we beat Jared Goff for the playoffs. We beat Baker Mayfield, right? We played good quarterbacks.
All those things are true. But so is the fact that they played a bunch of bad quarterbacks. That's true too.
It is what it is. We played.
Yeah. But I don't hear many. Look, I hear people outside of this market predicting a step back for our team. But you do this all the time. You're the king of straw man. You're the king of straw man. You do this all the time to prop yourself up as some badass, tough guy. I think they're going to be better than they were last year on offense. A lot better.
We don't have a fast running back. We don't have what are you talking about, man?
Get out of here. Get out.
We don't have you right.
You got you know what? The best part of this call was you got the Jets, and you may be the only person. So we'll watch that all season
long. If you
long.
Ain't rocking with my team, go up the road to Baltimore with Robert Annapolis and be disappointed every year.
Well, that's silly. Man. That's silly. It's that kind of talk that is in the fan base when you can't have when you won't accept any critical thought. You lose me, because you can have critical thought. You can even be constructively critical, constructively positive. But when you start saying you're not a fan because you think critically, that's stupid, dumb. Love you though, Joe in Westminster. Finish it up. Who's the team you got going up, and who's the team you got going down?
Hey, man, if we had been listening to Paulie, Terry had already been traded for a third-round draft pick by now. So, he needs to pipe down just a little bit anyway.
I think Terry's been more pro-Terry on this. I don't think he was promoting trade. Was he? I don't know.
I thought he was he was saying he was calling it they were going to get traded.
Oh,
but
calling
that's beside the point.
Okay. Why?
So,
if you're a fan of this team, why are you talking about Terry being traded? Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying, Kevin. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So anyway, I've been thinking while I've been on hold, and the more I think about it, I think Cincinnati's going to be taking the step up this year. I kind of was thinking Cowboys, but you're right. They ain't got much on defense to work with. And
they have a good coach on defense, though. Eberflus will be a difference maker defensively for them, I think.
They're going to be better this year, but I don't think that they're going to be a step up to the playoffs this year because I think Washington and the Eagles being in front of them is just going to be a little bit difficult. So my pick is the Bengals because I just think Joe Burrow is an outstanding quarterback. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. And as much as I'd like to tweak your Ravens fans here and say they're going to be supplanted by Cincinnati, I can't go with that as much as Lamar's kind of due to get hurt. But I think the step back team, you're dead on. It's got to be Minnesota. I mean, we don't know what this McCarthy kid's going to do, and I'm certainly not looking at drafting John Jefferson in the first couple of rounds of my fantasy draft.
Well, he's banged up right now, and they're going to be without Jordan Addison, I think, for the first 3 games because of the DUI. I think it's 3 games, right, Max?
Right.
Jordan Addison?
I believe that it's 3 or 4. I think 3, though.
Yeah. So,
and I'll tell you, Kevin, in that division, I think Green Bay could take a step back, too. I think they could be I'm not on the Jordan Love bandwagon like you are, bud.
I like Jordan Love. I like him a lot.
I know
so
you
here's
do.
the other
I
team
don't
that
think he's
thanks for the call.
all
Joe.
that.
Great call. Appreciate it. The team that this is not a prediction of a step up from non-playoff to playoff season. I think Pittsburgh's got a chance to be really good this year. And of course, it comes down to Aaron Rodgers. The talk out of Pittsburgh is they don't notice any difference with him throwing the football. And if you watched him, and I've said this many times, had the guy on that covers the Jets, a few months ago, and he's like, their kicker cost them games. Their defense cost them games. Aaron Rodgers looked like Aaron Rodgers after, 5-6 games of the season. If Aaron Rodgers is a top half of the league quarterback, which I think he still is, I think Pittsburgh's going to win a playoff game or 2 this year. They make the playoffs and they win 9 or more every year. So that's not a big leap. It's not a big limb that I'm stepping out onto, but I think they could be, it's a tough division, man. I think they could be an 11-win team that wins a playoff game or 2 with him and with Metcalf and with that defense. They've got talent everywhere. And I think this could be a year for Tomlin. And I think it's going to be, kind of I guess Rodgers couldn't win comeback player of the year, right? Because he played all last year. So anyway, that was the one team that I had not mentioned. And again, it's not non-playoff to playoff, but it's a playoff team that ends up being a threat when they get there. I like Pittsburgh this year a lot. All right, when we come back, should John Wall have his jersey retired by the Wizards? If you want to weigh in, we're going to clear the calls on the football. Open them up at 301-230-0980. Should John Wall, who officially retired yesterday, have his jersey retired by the team? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right, here's what is happening on this Wednesday, August 20th. Mike Garafolo has said that there are certainly interest in Brian Robinson from other teams, including the Miami Dolphins around the league. But the big question they're asking is why he fell out of favor with the Commanders. Dan Quinn said his post-game presser on Monday, he's certainly somebody that we respect a lot, end quote. And the Bears, they are signing quarterback Tyson Bagent to a 2-year, $10 million contract extension with a max value of $16 million, including incentives, tying him to Chicago through 2027. And the Nats, they are calling up number 1 overall pick Eli Willits to High A Fredericksburg and could make his debut as soon as tomorrow. Speaking of the Nats, they fall to the Mets by a score of 8-1. The woes continue for Jake Irvin as he gives up 5 runs in the 3rd inning and 1 more in the 6th for good measure. David Peterson with a strong outing for the Mets as he goes 8 innings, only giving up a single run. They'll continue their series versus the Mets tonight. Brad Lord on the mound versus Kodai Senga. First pitch at 6:45. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 6:15. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1, and you can catch Denton's office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and don't forget to stay up to date on all things DC sports by turning on notifications. And that is what's trending.
John Wall yesterday officially announced his retirement from the NBA. John Wall, for me, is an all-time Mount Rushmore Wizard bullet. And I'm talking about the bullets in D.C., not Baltimore. My Mount Rushmore is Elvin Hayes 1, Wes Unseld 2, John Wall 3, Bobby Dandridge 4. Just missing Gil and Phil from that Mount Rushmore. That's not the question. The question is, should the Wizards retire John Wall's jersey? If you want to weigh in, 301-230-0980. There are only 3 jerseys from Bullets in D.C. that have had their jersey retired. 5 franchise history, including Baltimore: Earl Monroe, Gus Johnson, Wes Unseld, Elvin Hayes, and Phil Chenier. For me, Elvin Hayes is the greatest player in franchise history. I've got Wes 2. I don't care what order you put those 2 guys in. I think John's 3. You know, something that I didn't know and a friend of mine shared with me. The value over replacement player number, which is really the overall advanced number. John Wall's 2 in franchise history behind Wes. Bradley Beal's actually 3. Elvin's 4. Gilbert Arenas is 5. All-time leading assists, all-time leading steals. And how about this? All-time leading rebounders in franchise history. He's 10th for defensive rebounds as a point guard. John Wall has some signature moments. The 3 that he hit to force Game 7 against Boston in 2017, and a signature game, Game 6 that same year in 2017, on the road against Atlanta, put away the Hawks with 15 out of the last 17 points for the team in the fourth quarter. By the way, hitting as they went underneath every single screen, daring him to make that mid-range shot, knocking down each one of them, not to mention an unbelievable block defensively. 42 points in that game, 7 assists, and total clutch down the stretch. Look, it is a bit of an indictment on the franchise's history that, for me anyway, that John Wall's so easily on the Mount Rushmore of players in history. He played 9 years. He was injury-riddled for sure. But we have what we have to work with. And for me, it's a no-brainer. John Wall's jersey should be retired by the Wizards, because for me, a Mount Rushmore player has to have his jersey retired. Ted did put out a very nice statement yesterday on John. Where is it? Hold on. 15 years ago, the Wizards selected John Wall with the first overall pick out of Kentucky. We knew we were getting an elite point guard to join the Wizards ranks, and we ended up with so much more. 10 years of John Wall on the Wizards and a legacy to last a lifetime. John was simply outstanding in his time on the Wizards. He went from rising star in his rookie year to a 5-time NBA All-Star. Alongside Bradley Beal, the dynamic duo led the team in 4 playoff runs. That was out of 5 years. Remember that year they didn't make it, lots of injuries. DC fans adored John for the player he was on the court and the person he is off it. We could feel how much John genuinely loved DC, and the district loved him back. His investment into the community through philanthropy, events, and youth basketball programs made a difference in the lives of so many. His loyalty, community involvement, and passion went above and beyond what was expected, and we all loved him for it. As the news breaks of John's retirement from the game, I know all of us in DC are sending him our well wishes and are excited to see what's coming next. Thanks for everything, John, on behalf of all of us at the Washington Wizards and at MSC. That's Monumental Sports and Entertainment. Congratulations on your retirement. I think they're going to retire his jersey. It would be insane not to. I've had John on the show a couple of times in the last year. He's going to be doing a lot of work for Amazon Prime in the NBA. He is, for me, I'll just be candid with you, very surprised at how good he is as an analyst and as a communicator. And I think he's going to have a very successful career. He is a basketball junkie, but that's not the question. The question is, should he have his jersey retired? Yes or no? I say unequivocally yes. It's easy for me. I'm a lifelong Bullets Wizards fan, and we've suffered, for a lot of years. And a lot of it's on current ownership and the way things have been handled. Hopefully 5 years from now, there's a contending team. But those 4 playoff, years with John and Brad and Gortat and Nene and Trevor Ariza and Paul Pierce, etc., those teams were better than the Gill teams and the Antoine teams. They were, because they actually defended. They were just better teams. They won 3 playoff series, and they had a chance, in all 3 second rounds to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Had a chance against Indiana that first year. John doesn't break his hand. They have a chance against Atlanta. And certainly they had a chance in Game 7 against Boston. John, for me, easy, no-brainer, retire his jersey, hang it in the rafters with Wes, Elvin, and Phil as Washington Bullets. They were Bullets. He would be the first Wizard. Let's go to Joe in Springfield. Joe, what do you say?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm good, Joe.
I would say absolutely yes, that they should retire John Wall's jersey. I mean, considering that run we had in the playoffs, and if not for him getting hurting his hand like in 2015, we would have played in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then after the buzzer beater in Game 6 against Boston, I understand that it was a back and forth in Game 7 against Boston. We would have had the conference finals again. We would have played LeBron and the Cavs both times.
Yeah, none of those teams were going to the finals, but they all had legitimate chances to be in the Final Four in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he definitely gave us a chance all those times. I understand he played hurt in like one of those series, but he definitely gave us a chance, especially that 42-point game to close out the Hawks in Game 6, I think, in 2015.
One of the great individual playoff performances in franchise history. There aren't a lot of them to choose from, and you got to be old to know the ones that lead the list. Elvin Hayes' Game 7 against the Hawks in 79, 39 points, I think 18 rebounds, 7 block shots. Bobby D in Game 7 against San Antonio. There are some incredible performances from when the franchise was relevant. Gill, obviously, with the game winner against Chicago in Game 5 that set up the opportunity to win Game 6 at home. But what he did in Atlanta in Game 6 to put that series away, that's top 3, top 4 playoff performances in franchise history. No doubt.
There's no way Gilbert's going to get his jersey retired, Kevin. It's John Wall all the way.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Scott in Frederick. Should John Wall's jersey be retired? Yes or no?
Well, I'm gonna go. First of all, I'm a little biased. I was his UPS driver, and we moved to Potomac, so I can tell you he was a really, really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to say yes. You made a great point though. You said it's really more of an indictment on the franchise than anything else. I mean, if John Wall's on the Lakers, does he get retired? No. I mean, so many teams out there, he wouldn't. But sure. I think in this case, he definitely should have him retired. He was a dynamite person. I can tell you that personally. And, I definitely have to say yes. He's definitely better than Gilbert Arenas was. And those Wizards team, you're right. I think they would have been top 4, level, but they just didn't have what it took, to really get past. But John Wall is definitely the catalyst on those teams.
Yeah. Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. Let's go to Jay in Columbia. Jay, yes or no on John Wall's jersey being retired?
I would say absolutely he needs to have his jersey retired at Rose Bar.
Okay. What about for the franchise?
No, I think you should. I mean, it's just a shame. I think the underlying thing with even the question is the competency or lack of competency of Ted and just the whole ownership group to get them to play at a level where they could get through deeper into the playoffs.
Right.
And sadly, we sit here today and we're further back than where we were, so I think John did the best he could. I was most impressed I was at a Nats game where he was throwing out the first pitch and I was really impressed with how good he was with the general public. He was signing autographs.
I thought you were going to say the pitch, which was not very impressive, but yes,
the pitch was impressive, but he was.
Yes, I agree.
I didn't realize how much community outreach he did. So I think it's a combination of both. I'd say yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not even factoring that in, to be honest with you. I'm factoring in just pure basketball. But anyway, Mark in Largo. Mark, you literally have 30 seconds, so go.
Okay, John should have his number retired. And Kevin, you're crazy to think that Gilbert Arenas is not better than John Wall. John never went up against LeBron James at all in the playoffs. Gilbert did.
Gilbert
And
went
what
up there
happened?
the last 3 times.
And what happened in all those
and they
series?
lost. But I'm saying that was when LeBron was in his prime. But Gilbert put us on the map. Don't forget that. Gilbert put us on
the map. How so? They won one playoff series with Gil. One.
Nobody came to Washington before Gilbert got here.
Well, they came to watch the other
Nobody
teams.
even recognized the Wizards.
I
before he
agree
got
with you,
here.
but that's not a reason to put him ahead of John Wall because all of a sudden there was some brief temporary excitement for the team. Gil's great. He's just on the outside for me. He's arguably after Elvin Hayes the greatest scorer in franchise history. I got to run though. I told you 30 seconds. That's it. I got to go. I'm up against a hard break. Chris Russell next.